Hello, it's Do You Expect to Talk? And as you can tell, I'm not Becca, so that means it's commentary time. How is everyone? How's everyone, Dave and Becca? How are we all?
Good evening, folks. This feels a bit surreal because we haven't done commentary on the particular series we're covering tonight since Shashawn died in 2020. So it's been a long
time.
A long
time.
Yeah, we promised some books, but they're coming. Chris has got his entire sort of collection of. I think he's got
a really nice collection.
He's got the folio collection or whatever it is. No, it's not the folio one. It's the
penguin one. Because I already have a few of those from like when I think they initially came out. To the Times was given away through Phoebe, so I had those. But I was looking through like the ones to buy, and I was like, I kind of prefer the covers. Out of all the ones you get, so I got them second hand, but I say second hand, it was not touched, practically new. So
because I mean, with Kindle editions, the edition doesn't matter so much, but you still get like cover art in your sort of menu screen, and all of mine are just the full length picture of Fleming like walking, and I've always regretted that because they're the least interesting covers any of the Bond like books editions have ever had. So yeah, you got the nice ones.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I've all the ones. They're the ones I kind of prefer because they've looked very pulpy, which I kind of like.
I think it's fair to say the novels are somewhat pulpy.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So I'm looking forward to getting into it. Obviously, I think we're gonna get into it sooner rather than later. So we've got that to look forward to.
So how are you, Becca? Because I've just answered for myself.
I'm okay. Yeah, I had a bit of a Bondian weekend. Met up with some lovely JBR South Coasters. We went to go and see The Living Daylights last night. That was really good fun. So I had a great time doing that. I think but a few of my colleagues fell asleep, obviously because it's been a very long week and very hot.
And also Act 3 of that film is not as good as the first two acts.
No, but when a certain person who probably won't listen to this fell asleep in pre-titles. But no, it's fine, no worries. But no, it was really good having this little meet up. Went to go see some classic Timmy action on the big screen. That was really good fun. Tonight, I'm really looking forward to this film. Also, they I was lucky to catch it at the Prince Charles in London as well for the anniversary of this film. So I saw that recently on the big screen, and obviously it was my first Bond at the cinema as well. But I'm looking forward to doing this commentary tonight, as it has been a few years.
How was The Living Daylights on the big screen? Like, how did it Did it look as good as it, or was it kind of somewhat dated? Because sometimes you don't realise. I'm so used to watching Bond on the small screen.
No, that's it. I mean, especially where if you've got various sort of 4K remasters and that as well. Especially in this anniversary series as well. Some of the I can't think what the word I'm looking for. Some like DCPs and everything. Some of the scans that they have. Some of them are fantastic. Like the early Connerys, we were just saying like how sharp they look and how vivid they look. So like the first 3 Connery films look amazing.
I'm no expert, but I don't think the 80s used as good film stock as the 60s.
No, probably not as well. I mean, some of the 70s like Roger Moore ones do look really good. Like I was surprised by how I was impressed with, like, for example, Octopussy and For Your Eyes Only, how good they looked on the big screen. I think GoldenEye was probably, I mean, it did look good, but that was probably the Brosnan one. That's probably the most dated for me, even though that's obviously 95. But like Tomorrow Never Dies, kind of seeing that on the big screen, it looked amazing. I didn't really notice that much. I mean, obviously the world politics is dated obviously as it is in the 1990s. But Living Daylights, for example, I think the print that they had used, I'm not quite sure. It just didn't. It looks kind of a bit washed out, a bit grainy almost. Maybe slightly better on the DVD or the Blu-ray if you've kind of got like 4K or if you've got the capacity to upscale for the home release. So a little bit disappointed with that kind of print. Maybe it was just kind of a standard DCP, but I mean it still looked great. Had a good time with it. Just enjoyed the film. But yeah, seeing this film tonight on the big screen, it was pretty special. But I do have like rose tinted spectacles. I'm afraid I do have the nostalgia epic. And I said when we reviewed the film way back when, it is. Even though I do love it and I have like immense respect for it, but it is a bit kind of shoot 'em up Bond, and I'll try not to retread my steps tonight. I'll try not to, to repeat too much. But yeah, seeing it on the big screen, I thought it looked fine. It's really good. It kind of really sort of sparkled a little bit, being cleaned up. I think perhaps the only thing dated about it was probably, obviously the casual sexism and the gadgets and the politics, as these things do.
I don't remember when casual sexism was replaced with urgent sexism.
Well, no, it's just like,
Craig took it much more seriously.
He said this was some, casual sexism.
Intense sexism.
Well, just to sort of return the question back on Chris and ask him how he is, I believe you're breeding. Do you expect us to talk the next generation?
Yes, you got some news, Chris.
Yeah. So I am a dad officially. So yeah.
Yeah, congratulations.
So, thank you very much. So
he had a daughter midweek, and that's all we're going to say because privacy and all that.
Yeah. But yeah, everything's great, and yeah, so you kind of like it's a bit of an odd thing. I mean, being a dad or being a parent actually, because especially when it's your first one, because you never really know how to take it. Because it's a bit, it's like, well, I've not really done this before, and
it's all new, isn't it? Yeah, it doesn't really come with a guidebook, does it?
No, this is something that's gonna going to stick with you the rest of your life, and obviously it's going to change and evolve as you grow older, and it's like it's a bit well, what do I do now? But at the same time you're just enamored about something you created. So
to be fair, I mean it's dressing, feeding and burping in the first 6 months. They're just basically poo making machines. It's when they start moving about you're going to have it a bit more difficult.
Yeah, when they start fleecing you for all you got. But yeah, but I've got that to look forward to. But in the meantime, we have tonight's film to look forward to watching, which I think Becca alluded to. So savvy listeners probably might have picked up on it. It's Pierce Brosnan's second outing in Tomorrow Never Dies.
What are our memories of? We don't want to do a review again, but what are our memories of what we thought of it when we reviewed it, ranked it, and everything? I don't mean remembering exactly where you put it or whatever, but. I mean, if I just quickly go first, my memory of this film is there's not a whole lot wrong with it. I just don't think it's a particularly standout Bond film. There are things that I think Brosnan was a bit unfortunate for me because I think he was trying too hard in GoldenEye. I really do, and I always point to the Q scene as an example. He's thinking about every single mannerism, and by this film, they've tidied his hair up a bit, and he just looks so much better and more confident in the role. But then, and he's the right age, but at the same time, this had a very rushed production. So it was all rushed with different script ideas, and it just doesn't massively stand out. And they cast him against Michelle Yeoh, who in some respects is a standout Bond girl, but they have no chemistry. And then, of course, Terry Hatcher's pregnant, so they cut her role down a little bit, and she didn't have great chemistry with Brosnan anyway. And so I just think, it's a bit like the third film is really great for the first half. There's always just something not quite right with his films. It's not a standout, but I think, it hangs together all right. I've always been entertained by it.
Yeah. I mean, I think on paper as well, it's a really solid idea, and it works really well. Brosnan's on form, and it does have a lot of action, which is kind of what Becca alluded to with the whole shoot 'em up.
It's ridiculous coming in where he's just spraying around bullets, yeah.
Yeah, but it even has the whole sort of large blonde haired henchman who's really sort of difficult to beat up. That trope, and you think, you feel like if you read an early draft of the script, and you'd be thinking, this is going to be great. This is exactly what you want from a Bond movie. But yeah, it's quite surprising that the production was rushed. Didn't know what they were shooting from one day to the next, which is kind of amazing when you watch it because you just think, well, it doesn't seem that bad. It's just if anything, just a bit underdeveloped or know.
On the other hand, there's very few times, and I'm damning with faint praise here, but he never really felt like Bond to me. There was things about him, like in GoldenEye, he's got the sort of comma of black hair, and I always thought Bond was fairly lean. So there's a visually he sort of approximates him, but then he's got quite a thin, reedy voice compared to Roger Moore. So I always think he comes off as a bit of a wimp. But then there's at least 2 shots in this film where he's Ian Fleming's James Bond, and I'll point to them as we go through. So there's things to like about it, absolutely, definitely.
I always thought Brosnan kind of got a bit... He came in at his time, but then unfortunately his time was kind of at a time where everything just felt a bit weak sauce.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's unfair, but the general production, because I don't think there was a clear vision of what to go for.
And Michael and Barbara had only taken the reins. They hadn't done many of these.
They kind of wanted to. I think
not leading them.
I've heard an opinion that Bond movies tend to sort of like mimic what's popular at the time, which was true like in the 70s.
Yeah.
You know, with Live and Let Die, Man with Golden Gun, the kung fu element in that.
Well, I've always thought, for example, that
Star Wars
when you break it down, I think it was an era of not fantastic writing. Showrunners that had been on the Bond, not showrunners, but you know what I mean, producers who'd been on the series for decades, but not been absolutely where the buck stops, and now they are. They've got Cubby's pick for Bond, not their own. Even though I think Brosnan is a perfectly fine choice as Bond. It's just, if you rank them, somebody has to go near the bottom. It's not that he's bad. But, you know, I often think a lot of the reason GoldenEye is so beloved is because it felt sort of like a Cold War Bond film, just updated. It had the feel. And when you actually look at it, the script doesn't make any sense. And, you know, Brosnan's not very good in that one, in my opinion. I know some people disagree on that. But, like, his next 2 films are great, but there's script and casting problems there. And this film didn't go into production until April. And since GoldenEye, that's never happened. It's always been December or January for that release schedule. So they were up against it, really up against it. And what they've come up with is sort of solidly entertaining, but it's of its time. I do think there's a couple of bits, because I watched a little bit of it earlier. There's a couple of bits earlier where he lapses into the Roger Mooreisms of not only the very sort of weak source payoff line, and they're worse than Roger Moore's by a long way, but also, like, he's on a bike with Wei Lin at some point, and she says, you know, don't even think about it, or something like that, or something like that. And I'm thinking, who thought that was a good idea to be put in the script? It's like a sexist earlier version of Craig having a relaxed chat with Moneypenny during a car chase. It's like,
when do you mean? Is it kind of like when
on
they're
the
arguing
bike,
and he's like, get on the bike, I need to
on the bike,
and she's like, who's driving?
She turns position. So she's kind of straddling him, and he gives her a look, and she's like,
and she's like, don't even look at,
don't even think about it, or something like that. And I'm thinking, firstly, you've just undercut any tension, and secondly, for the audience, because you're quipping, but secondly, they're supposed to be
honest, just so she can kind of play off against Bond, basically, because I think it's, first of all, it's a tough act, obviously, because you had Tim not only following Tim, but Tim following Roger as well, which is a hard act to follow. You know, Sir Roger had a difficult act, kind of live up to Sean, but live up to George, which is going to be a hard act to follow. And obviously, I think he doesn't kind of really hit his stride. Maybe until the next film, Lord Is Not Enough. I kind of think he does kind of get into it. So this time, I'm going to big up and go, screw you, Dave. I'm going to...
It's not about not championing the film.
Joking.
It's about the fact that taking that one particular thing, I was reminded of Roger Moore, because I just thought, you're just telling us that in the middle of a tense sex sequence, he's thinking of sex. He's just thinking of sex. And I just thought that was Roger's problem. It's just like, you're supposed to be in some tense sequence, and Roger's going, oh, look, tits.
But to answer that question, though, like, this is kind of because the Dalton movies, the 2 movies that he had, was kind of deemed. I mean, they weren't, but they were deemed as failures, or like they weren't as successful. Audiences didn't take to it. By that time, the Roger Moore type movies, which is like a bit more of the naughty schoolboy kind of thing, was deemed to be a lot more popular.
And then obviously Dalton came along.
They've gone greatest hits.
So they kind of like was like, oh, let's return to like more Roger Moore type ish. So what you have, which is why you have those kind of like those lines and those like, oh, don't even think about it. You know, that kind of naughty schoolboy aesthetic.
Of everything that come before. I kind of feel like with Bros, they did sort of try his best, but I think due to the scripts that he was handed, they were trying to kind of roll all of that into one, and trying to kind of turn Brosnan into kind of like a combination of like Sean, George, everyone that's come before. It did. I do. I mean, there are points that I do struggle with this film. I mean, the politics are very much on the nose. I'm going to see this on the big screen at the Prince Charles a while ago. The helicopter set piece, for some reason it skipped my brain. I'd totally forgotten about it, and I kind of thought, well, it's very cool, but it's a bit unnecessary, and it goes on for quite a long time.
It's too long, yeah.
It's too long. I mean, it's amazing. It's done really well. But it's just, it's a bit kind of, obviously, because you've got like, the car chase, and you've got other amazing kind of stunts, and obviously you've got the film's epic finale aboard the stealth boat, which is quite exciting. But it's a bit unnecessary, really. You could probably chop it out or edit it to, make it a little bit shorter.
Well, earlier this evening...
One giant stunt piece too many. Oh, sorry, carry on.
No, what I was going to say was, earlier this evening, because I've not done one of these commentaries watching like a disc for a long time, because I've been off in some other room watching a rip, but I'm here tonight with the Blu-ray on, and I thought, sod's law.
Some other room, have you got some secret Bond annex?
Something like that. But well, every room in this house is a Bond room, but it would be. But no, I put it on because I thought, sod's law, because I remember years ago when we did the Die Another Day commentary, I started getting a load of skipping at the end. So I thought, I'm just going to let it play through on silent until they're ready to record, and then I'll just jump back to the start. So I had it on silent, just playing for a while, just to check there weren't any problems. And actually, with the sound off, that scene runs way too long. But I'd never noticed it with the sound on, and I suppose the film's supposed to be taken on its merits.
No, that's it when you're doing a commentary, isn't it? I mean, because we all listen like with the sound off, or I have the sound on like super low, so I can so I'm here like, I've got one ear in. I haven't got like great big cans. I've literally just got like my old-fashioned wired earbuds. Yeah. So I don't get hashtag clammy ear. With other podcasts. So yeah, I've got like when you're in, I kind of got the sound on like super low, but I still have the subs on just so I can follow what's going on.
Yeah, me too.
Good old subs. But yeah, so I kind of like, it's one of those things where if you do listen to it without the music or without the dialogue, whatever, for example, you just think, obviously because you haven't got those beats, or you haven't got those cues.
Yeah. I mean, the best ever example was in The Spy Who Loved Me, when Roger Moore's knocked out in the hilarious way on the boat. And you've got the sequence of him heading back to the office, and without sound, it's like Around the World in 80 Days. He's gone on a world tour on the way home. I expected him to wander through fucking Scunthorpe on the way. You know what I mean? Yeah,
it obviously detracts from. Obviously, when you're doing a commentary, you do kind of need to turn the sound down so you can just waffling all over it.
Yeah. Anyway, I suspect we can get into it and just make our observations as we go. Do you want to cat us in, Chris?
Yeah, sure.
So initiate mission. So I shall get on to. I'll get on to Leo the Lion.
Well, I'm on pause on 0, if you like, on the disc. So I've already gone through initiate mission. So if you want to do that and pause it immediately, and then you can catch us in.
So I'm going to count. Okay, so.
Okay, I'm on 006.
And it's just shy of 2 hours, isn't it?
Yeah, it's about 1:58 and some seconds.
Yeah.
Are we on different formats again? Am I on the Blu-ray?
I'm on Blu-ray, and I say I'm on not absolute 0. That's like no energy in the universe. No, I'm on all the zeros basically.
I'm on 6, so I'm 6 seconds.
Just skip back. Just press skip back.
It's okay. I'll be 6 seconds ahead.
Okay. I don't see the point of doing that. Just pause for 6. All right. Okay.
I mean, we're gonna sort of
All
be
right.
about.
Okay, Chris. Away you go.
All right. Ready? So 1, 2, and 3. And away to play. Leo the Lion.
I tell you what, they've cleaned Leo up since that film.
Yeah, he looks good.
No, I'm saying on this particular print, Leo looks a little grainy, and they have cleaned it up since then.
They have.
United Artists. When did we stop? I think Die Another Day was the first film we didn't see United Artists at the front of.
No, I don't remember.
My favourite gun barrel with my
this is my favourite Bros gun barrel.
It's my favourite Brosnan gun barrel, but this is my favourite visual. But there's other music from other Bonds that I prefer.
No, I think this.
But it's the best music on my favourite visual. Yeah, it's really relaxed.
Words
isn't
Not
it?
Enough. That's probably my favourite music from the Gun Barrel.
You like the World's Not Enough better? Yeah, okay.
It's kind of like just sort of sweet, casual.
Laconic. Yeah. Now I must say, I've never put too much thought to how much sense this does or doesn't make. So maybe because when I watch Goldeneye, I'm tough on it at the start. I mean, because that pre-title doesn't make any sense as soon as you think about it. And I must say, I've never thought about this, but I do remember liking this.
It's quite cool, isn't it?
It is odd because this guy does play like a new Bond pre-title as well. He could.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't. He's not introduced straight away, so it's like.
He's not. Yeah, sorry, you mean first in a run like The Living Daylights or something? Yeah. And there's Jeffrey.
Yeah, it's a little bit like that.
There's Jeffrey. What's his surname? Becca.
Jeffrey from that program.
I've never not known his name until I have to say it on a podcast. He died last year, in his 90s.
Jeffrey Palmer.
He could have played a good M as well.
Yes, he could.
He could have been.
But then I still remember him cooking his own sausages in Fawlty Towers, and that sort of undermines his authority somewhat.
He was. What was that sitcom that he was in?
It was called As Time Goes By.
As Time Goes By. That was.
It was a very gentle comedy. It was a sort of 7 o'clock on a Monday night type of comedy. It wasn't wildly funny, but it was like very, very watchable with two very nice leads.
It's hugely popular,
very
though,
gentle.
wasn't it?
Yeah, it ran for years. It ran for they were people who found love together late in life. They'd both been like widowed or whatever. So they're well used to acting together.
Yeah, they're kind of known, as a known on-screen couple, as it were.
Yeah, and Colin Salmon here, it's worth mentioning, and it did not damage, because it didn't damage the later films. But the problem is they wanted Michael Kitchen back as Tanner, and he wasn't available. So they invent the Robinson character for Colin Salmon here.
For Tanner.
And of course, by the next film, they're both in there when you only need one. Because they're trying to be fair, and it did tell me at this point there was nothing like ruthless about Michael and Barbara. They needed to make a decision and go, no, sorry, the character as per the books is Tanner, or Michael Kitchen wasn't available last time, so we're going to go with Charles Robinson. And they had both of them in, and there wasn't room for them both, so they were taking turns to say stuff.
Also, this pre-title scene on the ship. Let's see if we can spot how many before they were famous actors.
Well, you're going to see.
I've got them all listed. So yeah, we've got Gerard Butler, Charlotte Buckwood, basically.
Yeah, he's
just there's a couple that
he has a line as well. There's
45 degrees by the stern. And I can't do the Scottish accent. So you'll see. I'll try and point
that
out
was a Scottish accent. Blimey, I mean, at least I normally know what you're attempting.
When they come on screen, I'll try and point them out. But yeah, you got Gerard Butler, Julian Mintup, basically, Hugh Bonville and Brendan Coyle, both known later on down the line for Downton Abbey, which is huge. And obviously you've got the cameo there from Julian Fellows, who obviously would go on to create Downton. Obviously he's well known for other things.
Well-known writer on it.
Jason Watkins as well.
I have a feeling he wrote something like Gosford Park as well.
Gosford Park, yeah, he did, definitely. And he had another series as well, which is really popular.
Yeah.
And you've got also well-known British character.
I recognise that guy, just looked around then.
Torrance as well, making an appearance.
But this is a well-done sequence, and presumably that's CG, and it's just about... Maybe it's because there's not a lot of shots of it, so they can do it properly.
Yeah.
But, it's actually looking pretty good.
I kind of think that shot of the rocket launching as well, or the missile launching, I think that was reused later on down, I think either in There Wasn't Enough or Die Another Day, it was reused again.
Oh, okay. Well, I would say we'll look out
because...
for it, but we've already commentated on those, so I don't know.
Yes, it'll be on there somewhere. It'll be a fun fact, I imagine.
It's so comic booky though, this sort of it. And I mean that in a good way. Like it's...
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? It's kind of very much comic booky. It's very exaggerated.
Yeah, I love the fact Pierce Brosnan his Bond has a tendency to knock people out in one punch. Because they always say, if all the Bonds fought each other, who would win? And the irony is, it would be Moore or Brosnan. Because they couldn't fight, they just had them knocking out people in one punch. Craig found fighting quite hard.
But that's a movie trope, though. I mean,
it just makes me laugh, because if this was reality, Brosnan would have been punching that guy for about a month. They'd all have been dead.
If listeners, if you've heard of that anime One Punch Man, that is Bros. Basically,
he does it in The World Is Not Enough when he goes to that guy's room, the South African, and knocks him out with one punch.
And he's knocked out for hours
afterwards.
Well, that's what Sir Roger does. He does a judo chop. And,
Yeah, that
people
judo
fall to
chop.
the ground.
Yeah, but there's a bit more science in that, isn't it? A judo chop.
It's precise.
It's precise. It's forensic, one might say.
It is.
And he even distracts them with his oof.
Yeah, don't forget the sort of grab on something and do a double kick.
Yeah.
Like do swinging.
There
kick.
were only 2 Bonds that were well-known bruisers in real life, and it was the first 2. Craig might have had the hardest screen presence, but like Michael Caine remembers like Sean Connery fighting 4 guys at the same time and things like that. Yeah. We know Lazenby was in a lot of fights.
Yeah, the tough Scottish upbringing.
Yeah, we knew Lazenby could fight.
Yeah.
Rumble. Mm-hmm. But going to see this at the cinema, though, I do seem to remember, because this is like my first one at the cinema. Like, obviously, I'm skipping ahead a little bit here, but like when so he kind of like flies into like all those flames and thinking, "Oh my God, Bond is dead!" Oh! And then obviously he comes out triumphantly. I remember sort of thinking, "Shit."
I remember watching this with my dad at the time, and I just remember having a complete blast. It was just like fun from start to finish.
My initial thoughts, I saw it twice at the cinema, and I was supposed to go with a friend who isn't I don't see him a lot anymore, to be honest, mainly just because this is 25 years ago and you do lose touch with people, but I'm still friends with him on Facebook. He's a doctor in Wales now somewhere, but he was going through a bad time in life, right, and he was a bit depressed, so like to cheer him up I was like, oh, let's go and see the Bond film on like whenever it is. So let's say I'd said to him, we'll see it in 3 days time. I got impatient and went to see it the day before, and I thought I won't tell him because he'll think like I couldn't wait for him. Yeah. I did screw it up when I laughed ahead of a joke. The second time we saw it, I laughed before a joke because I knew what was coming.
Oh, Dave.
So I think which joke was it?
I can't remember now. Might have been the shooting from Stuttgart. I can't remember.
Brushing up on Little Danish.
Might have been that. I don't know. Pain face.
We could do like a drinking game. I don't condone drinking games, but
I would be dead.
How many times Bros has the pain face?
I'd be dead. I mean, if you want to stay sober, just look for the expressions he does beyond the main 2. You won't drink a lot of 10. I recognise that guy in the back seat, strangling him.
Ooh, pain
oh
face.
no, that one,
pain
the
face.
other one, the one flying. I recognise him.
Yeah, he looks familiar.
It was funny, just talking about recognising people from other things. We won't go on a massive tangent here, but just on Thor, at the end, spoiler alert everyone, forward on 30 seconds, you see Hercules. Right?
Oh, yeah.
The guy playing Hercules was Kerry Godliman's boyfriend in Derek.
Oh!
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I've forgotten about that.
Yeah. I was trying to place it for ages and eventually just had to look.
Oh my God.
Hercules? Who's Hercules?
Zeus's son, who's sent.
Well, yeah, but which program are you talking about? Like what?
Thor, the latest Thor film.
Oh God, yeah.
I'm not talking about Coronation Street, am I?
Talking about
it was Emmerdale, and Hercules went into the Warpack and had a tomato juice.
No, but I was trying to think what context, like which show or film were you
No.
about, like?
So the latest Thor film. You obviously didn't hear me say that. Yeah. Backseat driver.
That's a great line.
It's a great line.
I love it.
But I think they fell in love with it when they wrote it and just had him say a funny line everywhere. I do like that though. Ask the Admiral where he'd like his bombs delivered. Of course, the second scene of the film would be Bond under a court-martial for insubordination. But
yeah, but because it's Bond, he gets away with it.
You can't do that. I remember back in the Clinton era, there were members of the armed forces making like very lewd jokes about Monica Lewinsky and stuff, and actually being a little bit abusive with it. And some of them got court-martialed because he's commander-in-chief. It's insubordination.
Yeah, you can't really do that, can you? So.
If I have one negative, sorry, I went off about seeing this friend. My first impressions were I really enjoyed it. I didn't know what I thought about it compared to GoldenEye, but I would say, because you had the casino in GoldenEye, and the equivalent here was like a nightclub, it felt like a nightclub anyway. I don't think I thought it was quite as stylish as GoldenEye, although now it's probably not dated quite as badly, because there's some process photography on GoldenEye that doesn't look very good, like the plane and all that.
Something a bit off topic, something I did notice about going to see The Living Daylights. Sorry, I forgot my brain there.
Yeah, I think, The Living Daylights, yuck! I always remember those boobs getting bigger there. I was like, blimey, how big are they going to get? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's one of those. We were talking about like JBR. We always do like the X of Bond, like I don't know, like the dogs of Bond or the trees of Bond, and so it turned into a little bit like seeing like the naked ladies here in this pre-title sequence, like the bums of Bond. Obviously, towards the end, there are like two guys in this tent that kind of gets blown up, and you just obviously see they're naked, and you kind of forgot. Oh, you see their backsides. So it's a little bit bums of Bond. But yeah, there's noticed in that scene like where he goes, I'll stab or where he'd like his bombs delivered. You kind of see like Brosnan getting, I mean, he's not like really sweaty, but you do see like sort of like a film of sweat, obviously, where he's had to fight off that bloke trying to strangulate him. And you see it a little bit in Daylights as well, where he's trying to sort of he commandeers the plane, and he's trying to get trying to motion to Kara like drive around, and you can sort of he sort of basically mouths an expletive at her basically. But you can see he's quite sweaty, like having to do it as well, and also like where he gives Nick Cross the boot, and he climbs back into the plane and disarms the bomb, and you can see like he's really sweaty and really sort of re-knackered, and I kind of think that's quite a good character beat actually. It's it takes a lot out of you, trying to do all this action-packed stuff.
This is the problem with it. I mean,
film on his face.
Brosnan didn't sweat, but. Did sweat, sorry.
You did sweat a little bit there, I thought.
But the problem with this era, and it was the same with the Roger Moore era, is, for example, in The World Is Not Enough, he injured his shoulder. And that was a massive big deal at the time. Yeah, and we'll see it in this film. He wakes up after having had sex with her and his hair hasn't moved.
No,
and it's like,
he looks the same.
All right, he doesn't need to look like a boxer in the 12th round or something, but it at least put a little bit of damage on them. I did appreciate that about the Craig era. They are allowed to bleed.
Where do you guys rate this pre-titles? So for me, it's great.
Pre-title or title?
The title sequence. Sorry.
I always found it a bit colourless.
Yeah, it's a bit. I mean, it's okay, but it just for me, the kind of the sort of TV theme gets a bit lost.
Yeah, I thought so. It had to be explained to me.
It is mostly babes and guns, though.
Well, it is, yeah. Martinis, girls and guns. It fits with the lyrics, but I kind of feel that it could have a bit more. I mean, it get the thing more like screens.
He said afterwards it was meant to be going into the workings of the TV, and that wasn't clear to me at all.
No, I didn't quite.
It is probably, now when you watch it, having been told.
Yeah, you can see how it goes.
It's a shame this isn't The Spy Who Loved Me, because there'd be some boobs on the wall.
What's the matter, Admiral? You've never seen a female commander before, or something like that?
No, have you never seen a commander have a shower or whatever?
Commander have a shower.
The answer would normally be no, wouldn't it? How many military gates has anyone seen have a shower? I recognise him. Mind you, I keep thinking it's Tony Hadley from Spandau Ballet.
Yeah, it's Tony Hadley probably.
Are we being sunken? It's true!
It's true! It is gold! Gold!
To cut a long story short, it's...
We're in the wrong position. We've gone through the barricades.
I don't know any other Spandau Ballet songs, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all about
Ricky Jay.
He was in the Magic Circle, wasn't he? He was a magician.
Yeah, he was a magician. The point I was going to make, though, is I can never remember whether it's his own voice in this film, because I know he was overdubbed in certain films. It seems very late in the day to be dubbing actors, but it could have happened.
I think it might have been, I don't... That's not in my knowledge bank, that he was dubbed.
The only other thing I've seen Stamper in was Downfall.
Oh yeah, Stamper.
He was in Downfall as a Nazi with he had brown hair in that though. I kept thinking, who's this guy? Actually. Who's this guy? And I looked him up, and it's like, oh god, it's the same guy.
It's Otto, but with different colour hair.
Yeah. Yeah, he was in Downfall.
I always think, there's the guy from The Bill.
Oh yeah. Well, it's one of these things, like all these random bit parts of characters. It very often have been in like The Bill, Emmerdale, British soaps.
Well, in the last one, you got a guy from Outnumbered, haven't you?
Oh, well, you have he popped up,
Yeah. Hugh Dennis.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting him to...
When you said the last one, I thought you meant the last one back from this. You mean the last one they made, right? Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, No Time to Die. Yeah, you have the unexpected cameo of Hugh Dennis.
I don't know what made them think of that. They thought, well, we need to cast a scientist. Like, what about the Milky guy?
Well, it's like casting Aid Edmondson in Star Wars, when the recent Star Wars movies.
Ah, but he did play a Red Baron in Blackadder Goes Forth.
Oh, that's true.
So he has played something vaguely
What
Nazi-ish.
a puff!
Have you ever felt the wind rushing through your hair? He has.
Brace.
See, this movie just has all like the bomb tropes, and you got like, you know, sort of like a Spy Love Me kind of like.
Yes, this is
Spy
very
Love Me
Spy Love
vibe.
Me, yeah.
You got like the maniacal bad guy who.
Well, the unusual henchman.
And by definition, to be fair, because I'm not a fan of him in this film, I'm a fan of him in life. I think he's a really good actor. But Jonathan Pryce in this film isn't for me. But what I would say is the maniacal ones tend to be a bit Marmite, don't they? It's like Stephen Burkoff. You either love or hate.
He's just hammy.
He's
just hammy. That's the thing. He's just like this is like the larger life villain.
I wonder how like Anthony Hopkins would have done it. Would he have been as hammy?
He'd have gone, hey!
Would he have been more cerebral? We don't know.
No, he would have gone full on.
Full on ham.
Yeah.
Fabulous. That's what we want.
Very classy gesture I read from him today. I read it on the sort of Better Call Saul site because that's a sort of thing I'll follow on Facebook. At the end of Breaking Bad, he wrote a letter to what's he called? Who plays Walter White?
Oh yeah,
Frank Cranston.
Yeah, that's it. He wrote to him, and he wrote this beautiful message about saying what a wonderful show it was and how amazing the acting was. And it was just, he didn't need to do it, and it was beautifully written.
Oh, that's lovely.
There he is.
Oh, Joe Butwood, there he is.
This is the Navy!
Yeah.
So that means he dies in this, doesn't he?
Yes.
Is he another trope of dying in all his films?
I didn't like this. Oh, I remember being annoyed by this. I don't like the directorial tics.
The slow motion bit.
Yeah, but it's strobing slow motion.
Oh, but yeah, that's a bit annoying. But it's quite 90s though.
Yeah, a famous film director did one episode of The Sopranos. I think it was Mike Nichols. And he did a really strong episode. And then right at the end, there was a slow motion bit of Carmelo like walking away, and it fucking ruined it.
It was a bit of a trope.
Do they sink that fast? Presumably that's a miniature. You can normally tell by the water being slowed down.
Yeah, it's a kind of...
Well, that's a silly question, isn't it? Is that a miniature? No, they sank a fucking Navy battleship for a movie.
Well, it probably would have been a bigger miniature.
A bigature. Yeah, the ones
I think that phrase was probably coined by Jackson.
By Weta. By Weta, yeah. For when we get to Lord of the Rings very soon, we'll be talking about them because they aren't miniatures as you would know them. They are enormous.
They are bigatures, literally. Yeah, that was amazing.
But they allowed for more detail and more granularity in your work when you're trying to dirty things down and stuff like that.
I'll say now, when we come to do Lord of the Rings and talk about Weta, I will mention Thunderbirds, but I won't go off on a massive tangent like we did last time.
No, the Lord of the Rings films are quite short. We need to pad them out.
This is it. But no, I'll mention, sort of key mention of Thunderbirds Argo, the 2015 series that was made by, in tandem with Weta Pictures and Weta Workshop and Pikiko Pictures. I'll mention that further on.
Oh, this is so visually in the tank at Pinewood, you can tell. But no, what I was going to say was...
This is also quite a controversial scene.
Can I ask a really silly question that might expose me as a bit thick? I understand what his overall plan is here, and I understand that the GPS was to sink it in the wrong position, so they would have been sunk, and both sides thought they were right, and they'd be talking about war. But I don't understand the exact body count, and if you have them murdered there, you're giving away the real position of it, and you can tell it's not. You can tell the missile's been nicked. You can tell it's been hijacked by some kind of drill. Aren't you undermining your own plan?
Yeah, probably. Don't look at it too closely.
Well,
I'd just like to say, do you know that scene where the divers are going down to the wreckage?
Yeah.
Did you notice that was CGI?
No. No, I didn't.
Good. I mean, I thought that as well, Dave, because he's talking about like survivors. Like, I want to know how many survivors. Yeah. It's like, well, okay, fine, but you're going out there and gunning a few of them.
Don't look too closely at the plot. It's a lot of nonsense.
Aren't you giving them witnesses? Like, like there was this like weird boat that someone came out and shot a load of us. Isn't that a bit suspicious?
Well, exactly.
Well, they used the right ammo. They definitely used that in dialogue, so that's fine. But it's like, if you've got bodies there, you're giving away the real location, probably.
I suppose when it's at sea, you're not that good to stay in the same place. They could like float just so it's not really evidence.
Yeah.
You could say that, but the whole idea of them walking out and if they're going to kill everyone, so it's 0 survivors, that makes more sense because there's no one.
Can I just say, ah?
I'm feeling about yeah.
It's the worst fucking cameo in the entire series.
Yeah, considering slime, that's pretty bad.
I have the videotape.
I thought the footage.
You know what his best cameo was? What's its skill?
Yeah, that was great. Voice cameo right at the start.
I don't know where it is.
It's right at the beginning. It's like
so you don't see him, you can hear him.
We might just capture bastard.
Yeah,
I mean, the one in the world is not enough makes me laugh because he stood next to he's a bouncer, stood next to a really hard nut looking big black bouncer, and it's like, well, why would you put a weedy little bloke there? I hate his one in Goldeneye because he's the only one at the table who can't act. The ones I like, if he has...
The one in Goldeneye is okay. I mean, he doesn't really have anything to do or say. He just sits there and be like, yes. But it's
it's
obvious.
the expression he pulls because he's the only one there who's not really an actor, although he has acted in things.
It's the same with Living Daylights as well. He's a theatre patron. He just kind of like...
yeah, that's
quite obvious, even Barbara.
I wouldn't have them, but if he insists on doing it and he's got ownership rights, so why not?
Hitchcock cameo.
Yeah, but Hitchcock was the director. We've had this conversation. He had some fucking input into the film being any good.
I know, it's a trend, isn't it?
But for example, in Quantum of Solace, he sat in a hotel lobby reading a newspaper.
Well,
That'll do.
That's the best way to do it. That's the best way to do it.
Don't have him try and act.
The thing with Hitchcock, it was a bit of a where's Wally kind of thing. It's like, see if you can spot him.
Yeah.
He's around somewhere.
Yeah, when the point is, none but the
hardcore
Bond fans.
Genius placement of Michael G. Wilson as well.
My point is, though, right? Everybody in the fucking world knew who Hitchcock was. There's
Michael G. Wilson.
The average person goes to the cinema and go, look, that's Michael G. Wilson. Now, Brosnan has more chemistry with this woman than anyone else in his fucking run, except Moneypenny.
I think it's fun, try and spot these things. I think it's a good laugh. I mean, I didn't mind the one to Goldeneye. It's just that that he's there, and the same with Daylights as well. And I think the License to Kill one is very interesting because it's right at the start. And if you don't know about it, likely, unless you're a hardcore Bond,
I don't go looking for them because they annoy me. When he went on Inside the Actor's Studio, she was in the audience because she was a teacher there.
Well, she was, yeah. Well, wasn't she a student by that point as well?
I think she was either a postgrad or a teacher.
I think she was a student.
But she was, she still had a beautiful smile on her and stuff, and they were really happy to see each other.
Yeah, that was lovely, wasn't it? That was really nice. That's such a great series. It was very sad when he James
Lipton,
that's the one. Yeah, when he passed away.
The closest you've got now is actors on actors.
Yeah, isn't it?
Which I tuned in expecting something completely different. It turns out they were just chatting to each other.
That was the sexy version.
Yeah. Well, it said, I don't know, Jennifer Aniston meets, I don't know, fucking J-Lo or something. I'm thinking, yeah, right, I'll have a look at that. But they just had a chat about movies and that.
Sexy times. I suppose they couldn't really resurrect it with somebody else.
No, they couldn't, because he was dean of the place as well, so it wasn't just a question of getting a presenter in.
Didn't he?
Gets it from Oxford,
look, it is a famous location in London, which you've also seen in Goldeneye. Named that's so annoying.
Well, wouldn't it be Whitehall?
No, it's not Whitehall. Courtauld Gallery.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, and we also saw it doubled for St. Petersburg in Goldeneye, or parts of it. Maybe
I know it was parts of it.
Like just before they go into that terrible scene with Michael G. Wilson.
I think it's because he does stand out to me because I know who he is. If you didn't know who he was, you wouldn't really be noticing.
That's it, exactly, because we know he's
but
there.
But then he appeared in...
Our sort of tune to be looking for it.
What film did he appear in as like a cancer doctor?
Oh, didn't know that.
I can't remember, but he was all right in that. I don't think he's terrible. I think maybe...
It's just one of those things, if you're attuned, you're kind of...
I don't know, it might be the stage fright moment of this is my big scene that fucks it up, whereas when you give him a small role with a few scenes, he's all right. He was the doctor in some film.
Well, they used to do that with in Morse, didn't they? They used to give him sort of.
I'm wondering if it was the programme, the Lance Armstrong film.
Oh dear.
Because he was treating someone for cancer, and I'm thinking of that film because Lance Armstrong had cancer before all the drug problems. And he was sort of treating some guy in it. I think so. I might be wrong. The thing is, I think he may have been uncredited. Oh no, he is. He's Lance's doctor in the programme. That's the film about all sort of Lance Armstrong's drug cheating in the Tour de France. It stars Ben Foster, who was in the X-Men films, and he was the bad guy in 3:10 to Yuma, sort of Russell Crowe's first lieutenant, if you like, or lieutenant, if you in our language. Chris O'Dowd is in it as the journalist that sort of broke it all, David Walsh. It's worth watching, and Ben Foster is eerily like Lance Armstrong in it.
So this is unusual, like Bond M.
On the way somewhere.
It is, yeah, unusual M scene.
Can I say, I had mixed feelings about it, which come out positive, by the way. The negative is, I like M's office. I like...
Yeah,
having said
I
that,
do prefer those scenes.
I mean, I'm not saying her office particularly, although I like it as a variant, but I always used to like the go to the office and talk to M. Having said that, one of the best M scenes of the lot is in Moonraker, it is in Venice, so... But I liked it as something different.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice, kind of like you have an office scene, especially if they're in the field, as it were, or in a different location. But yeah, it's kind of in this car, you feel a little bit like.
This sells that there's urgency.
You got 2 days.
Yeah, I quite like this in its way. Oh,
can't remember the name of that location.
About time for a pumping joke.
Yes, bumper for information.
The first film, it's like you're a sexist. There weren't any consistency in the scripting of his films, largely because the first 3 films are all scripted by different people. But the first film, it's like you're a sexist, misogynist dinosaur, and in the same scene, it's come back alive. And in the second film, it's like get out there and fucking knob her, right?
Thailand. Spring Cross. Oh, that's going to annoy me.
Bumper for information.
Somerset House, that was it. I can't remember the name of the location there, but yeah, Somerset House.
Somerset House belongs to somebody very famous, doesn't it?
Does it now?
I don't know.
I would have to look it up.
I don't know. I'm hoping no one looks it up and they just assume I've got some wisdom here that I can't quite recall.
Quickly Google it, see what Google says.
No, it is an arts centre.
Yeah, but also filmed at Portsmouth Dockyard, which I didn't realise.
Okay.
And also Plymouth, apparently, Dave.
He wants a
location.
He wants a template. He wants a tabloid for the flight.
You can tell David Arnold thought this is one opportunity to do a Bond score, so he just went all in.
Yeah,
oh, he did. He put the Bond theme on it too much. I don't dislike it, but there's too much Bond theme on this.
Oh, I love it. It's great, especially now. With the Daniel Craig era, we hardly ever hear it.
Yeah, but it's something like 13 times. When you think of your favourite Bond scores, the Bond theme isn't in it a huge amount. It's always there, but it's that they create new themes based on the same notes and stuff. If that was Roger Moore's Bond, he'd have gone straight to page 3 just to see if Tomorrow did do that sort of thing.
Well, I don't know.
This is much, much better. Most people remember the GoldenEye scene, or they remember the World Is Not Enough scene with Desmond.
I love this scene, it's great.
Yeah, well, this is what I'm about to say. The GoldenEye scene they like because it's all full of jokes and don't take that, that's my lunch, right? And in the third one, they like it because it's his final scene and he goes down. This is his best scene with Brosnan because they shot it in a lot of short takes. Whereas in the GoldenEye, you could see him reading the autocue.
Yeah, you can literally see it. He looks over Brosnan's shoulder and reads a card and then looks back at him. You can see it.
You can't hear.
But here, you kind of got that. The shots are composed in such a way that it hides that a little bit.
Yeah, it's much better. It's a better shot. But what would you expect from the director of Stop on My Mumble Shoot?
I do love it just a little bit.
You're no telephone.
New telephone. See, all this now. We have it on our iPhones. The fingerprint scanner. You can lock it and unlock it with your fingerprint.
Yeah.
Can't electrocute people with it though.
Well, no, you can't. No, that's probably for the best. And a remote control car, that's a thing now. Self-driving cars, self-driving taxis. It's a bit dangerous, but yeah, so it's a technology that we have now. GPS is now standard.
But yeah, I've always got mixed feelings on it because I'm a Bond fan. I obviously to some degree like some of this twatting around. But I started to resent. I started to resent in the Roger Moore era that he'd be asked to do something or asked about something, and he'd be the world's greatest fucking expert on everything immediately. And it's the same in Tomorrow Never Dies. He's broken your record. It's like, of course he fucking has. You know what I mean? And it's like, he has to drive it perfectly just for a bit of fucking wanking off over his skills. There was no need for that, and there's no way he'd do that. He wouldn't have that much confidence in his abilities.
He would.
Fucking shattered knees, going, well, I've nearly got it.
No, I don't think you wouldn't see Daniel Craig doing it though. He'd probably trash it first. And
to be there, Bros does have like a little bit of thing at the end where he's a bit like, that's a bit close. Oh, I
he was like, that was closer than I meant.
Yeah. Smug bastard.
Yeah. And I this choice, the choice of this car was the director's. He wanted a saloon, and I'm not sure why, because it's the most boring fucking Bond car of the lot.
The scene at the cover at the media show, I'm not really a big fan of.
Do you know what I don't like about it?
It does move quite slowly.
I try to go into every film fresh, and I think over the years I've proved I do that. But my biggest problem with this is I was comparing it to Goldeneye, and you had the fucking beautiful casino scene in it.
Yeah, that was amazing.
And he turns up here in what looks like a fucking nightclub, and I just don't like the visual of it for a Bond film. It's like Bond. It's like Bond in Vegas. Things you should never see in a Bond film. Bond in a nightclub.
I think what it is, it's just a bit dated. It looks very 90s.
It does.
I mean, maybe you could say early 90s.
He should take some ecstasy now and fucking dance off his tits for a few hours.
I think it's the lighting, isn't it? And it's Wayland's very very sparkly dress.
But didn't we have, when you think of his tux scenes in the first and third films, they're both in very classy locations, aren't they?
Mm. Yeah, they are. But here it is a little bit kind of 90s nightclub, isn't it? Pretty much.
Yeah, didn't like it.
This is actually the IBM building. Thanks to IMDb.com. IBM building. Bedford Links randomly, well, not Hamburg or wherever.
IBM.com. So IBM are into computers and the internet now, are they?
No, the cocktail party, IBM building, New Square, Bedford Links.
Yeah.
I think you can go there, but you have to kind of like go.
I don't know what emotion he's trying to sell here. Because I don't think he's got any particular feelings for her. He fucked off and left her years ago, but he walks in.
It's great. He gives her a slap.
He tries to sell himself as all like nervous to talk to him. His being slapped face is hilarious. And then it's like, did I get later on? It's
everyone cheered when
he literally is just fucking her for information. But now it's like, I had feelings. No, you didn't.
Well, you don't know.
She was apparently, it was going to be Monica Bellucci, and then the studio wanted preferably an American actress, certainly a name, and they went with her, and Brosnan did not get on, did not have great chemistry. Brosnan has, sort of being a gentleman, apologised years later because he said he was angry when she got to set late, but he didn't realise she was pregnant. But I think that's just him being polite. She's on a film. She was turning up late. They'd kiss and she was complaining about his stubble. That's why you only see her from the waist upwards. And when you see that none of the sort of desperate housewives she acted with ever talk to her anymore and are all friends with each other, that tells you Terry Hatcher is not an easy person to work with. Mm. And we could have had Monica Bellucci.
Or what others might say, a twat.
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying not to say
sorry,
that.
Sorry, I was a knob.
Yeah. No, but the point is, right,
I could say the C word.
Had it been Monica Bellucci, I think they would have got a bigger part for her here. I think what happened is they worked together. They were losing time because she was late to the set anyway. Her and Brosnan had no fucking chemistry. The bit where he disrobes her looks nice, but that's the way it's shot, not that they have great chemistry. And they didn't really get on, and so her part just got progressively cut back, which ruins it a little bit, because you're either selling them as having feelings, in which case she has to be in a bit more of it than this, or it doesn't matter and she's just a sacrificial.
I tell you why this doesn't work, and because I was thinking like of Monica Bellucci in the role, you would kind of see like she would have a bit more tragic sort of vulnerable kind of like presence. Here, Terry Hatcher is just all like, don't give a fuck.
No, she's with her husband. She's sort of lying to her husband with no fear.
I'm full of confidence, no consequences. There's just nothing.
You need to hint at darkness. Now, it's a Bond film. It's PG-13. I don't think you necessarily want him as some overtly violent wife beater, but I think you need more of a hint of that. They did sort of hint at it a little bit later on, but it's already been ruined by this scene where she's perfectly happy with her husband. It appears.
Mm.
And Wei Lin might as well not be there. I think Michelle Yeoh's great. She's great.
She's amazing.
She's great in everything she does, but she's just I don't know. She just doesn't have any chemistry with anyone in this film.
I do kind of think her and Bond do have chemistry, but I think she's.
It's not romantic though, is it?
No.
She holds her own, really.
It really should have. I mean, again, it's adding to the trope that Bond has to shag someone at the end.
To kind of win the girl as a trophy at the end. I kind of feel like with Wei Lin, it's unnecessary.
It could have just been like, oh, I'm a fellow agent, let's go get him. And this is
exactly.
And that's what the Craig era did.
I'm Bond.
With Nobody, definitely. It's like it's the first film where Bond doesn't get the trophy, or doesn't have to save the girl. I do kind of feel like Wei Lin kind of got out of that. She didn't need saving by Bond.
I found it very. It's the only time I think in the Bond series where, even in Quantum of Solace, it didn't. That when he kissed the Bond girl at the end, as it always was in the early days, it actually felt jarring. I was like, it's really odd, those two kissing. It just did not feel right, and it's the only time I've ever really felt like that. Didn't think he had great chemistry with Halle Berry, but they were much more playing the game of what she was there for, and they had a bit more spark, but I don't know. And most of the guys who tried to beat Pierce Brosnan up here are like what I joked Roger Moore's henchmen were becoming at the end. None of them look that hard.
I mean, they're big, but they look old.
No, but the ones in the sort of paper print press later on. It's like he's beating up your uncle.
The year and a half away from retirement.
Yeah. I mean, the trouble is, I think Big Ron from EastEnders has passed away by now, so you couldn't reprise him.
Little Big Ron, oh dear.
And none of this ever made sense to me as well. I know it's a soundproof room, but like he's been seen coming there. He's got a cover story. He's on the guest list.
It's not a very. To me, I kind of feels like it's a very kind of. I'm struggling to describe. It's not a very glamorous way for a villain to kind of do away with Bond, is it really? It's quite lazy. Not very much thought has gone into it.
Well, he's trying to pump him for information.
Trying to thump him for information.
Should have put him in that chair from the end of the first series of Blackadder, where it would take off his ears and like grind his dick off and shit like that. No, I just thought
he used to watch a lot of that.
Yeah, he did. The problem the problem here is, and this is where I get Becca's point. Don't think about it too much, but plots should have some logic, and I do think that this is probably not their fault. This is probably rushing a script, but Bond is there on the guest list, right? He's been sort of faked onto the guest list, but he's on the guest list, right? Which several staff have seen. They know he's a banker from Zurich. He's been introduced to a load of people, and then he disappears. That's not a good idea. You do not kill him there on the evening or anything like that.
It's not in the handbook, you know.
And I have a real problem here with them referring to it as a station break. That's an Americanism. A British agent would not call it that.
Well, yeah, it is a little bit. There are going to be some Americanisms from time to time.
He should be saying, time for an advertisement break.
Yes, time for a commercial break. Have we had Ed Winchester yet? No, we haven't, have we?
Ed Winchester, sorry, Elliot, we didn't do it.
We didn't do it. And it's like, it's Ed Winchester from the Fire Show.
Whose one joke was standing in front of a camera and saying, I'm Ed Winchester.
Hi, I'm Ed Winchester, and then being cut off. So he was obviously in some location where something dramatic was happening in the background. Hi, I'm Ed Winchester, and then being cut off.
The thing with Elliot's speech is, like, who's actually watching this?
Yeah, nobody.
I mean, like,
what's on TV tonight? Some media mogul's going to talk about shit. Let's get that.
Yeah, nobody's going to be watching that. Although this is back in the day where, like, you maybe just
about. Hang on a minute.
Even though it's like sort of the biggest one, like that was quite popular, like Steve Jobs back in the day when he did his announcement, like that wasn't broadcast on TV.
No, but neither's this. It's the Carver Media Network. It's a bit like it would be like Rupert Murdoch on Sky or something.
Yeah.
And it would be launch night in a new territory. So somebody, if they'd hyped it up, that it was now launching somewhere, people might tune in for the first night knowing the first 10 minutes is the chief executive or chairman or whatever he is.
Well, I wonder, would it
and
be
then straight into the evening's programming?
Or would this be literally just for press, or would it be trade?
Sponsored by Smirnoff.
At all? Is it, you know, would it be something that the general public see, or would it be just, you know, kind of like not proof of concept, but something for, you know, for the industry, for the trade?
I think it's launch night somewhere.
Yeah.
The Carver Media News, or whatever it's called, is on in the UK, on in America. They've now launched in, well, it can't be China because that's the point of the film, but they've launched somewhere.
Yeah, that's what he's going
and it's
for.
Opening night, and it's a simulcast across all versions of the channel, where you've got 10 minutes for the chairman to announce the new launch, and then they'll be on to something else. At the end of that speech, had it not cut off, the party would have continued, but like Carver news around the world would have gone back to tonight's headlines.
Pure acting from Terry Hatcher there.
I've never thought she's any good.
Oh, she's okay.
I think it's a bit like Catherine Zeta-Jones. I think she's got a fundamentally unpleasant screen presence, and it's not about whether she's attractive. It's not even about talent. There's just something that you go, I wouldn't like you.
Not a fan. Not a fan.
I've always thought she was pretty lousy, and then I started sometimes you can sense things before, and I don't know what that is. Like, I always thought James Franco came off as fucking slimy, and then you start finding out that yes, he was. And a couple of years into Desperate Housewives, well, I think early in Desperate Housewives, I heard about her behaviour on the set of this. Mitigation, she was pregnant, so morning sickness, things like that, admittedly. But then I heard, like, all the Desperate Housewives are great friends, but none of them talk to her. She's fucking awful. And you just think, like, how many times does this have to happen on different sets and different projects before you go, well, she's the common denominator. Anyone can can come off as a dick on one set.
Well, personalities clash and whatnot. It does happen, but...
Well, Brosnan was making films when his wife was dying of cancer. He can't have been a fucking walk in the park, can he? Mm. You know what I mean? So you'd forgive anyone once. It's a bit like when people say, oh, I met Billy Connolly once and he was an asshole. And you think... where was he? Did you bother him in a restaurant? Was he having a bad day? And you just, a sample size of one proves nothing.
Or if you meet George and he is actually a knob.
Well, well, he was.
No. He was charming. So he had a few drinks in him. So.
Well, George Lazenby, I sort of, you know, his film's my favourite, and I find him engaging, and I like the film they made about him. But it seems that all his stories are about how many women he fucked. And about how I did it my own way, and then he tells stories with a slightly different wrinkle each time, so you think, how honest are you? And so he's
kind of going through the filter of his handler, really, isn't he? So he wants to tell it one way, but then he's got his manager saying, oh no, George, tell it like this.
I don't know. I don't know what to think of him. His film will always be my favourite, though. But
it's one of those things, isn't it? I mean, you always say, oh, don't meet your heroes. I mean, yeah, they're going to be lovely, or might be a bit of a dick, but I think...
No, I think the lesson would be wary of meeting your heroes, but certainly don't judge on meeting them once.
No.
Because, you know, there are people who've met me in this world who don't like me, you know, and they may have met me once, or they may...
lovely.
You know, it's just, what experience did they have? How old was I? What was going on in my life? Did I misjudge a joke? Was I pissed? Probably. He likes biting, doesn't he? Eh? Sorry?
How are they feeling as well?
Exactly. Did they take something I said the wrong way, you know? Mm. And I just think, so had I heard she was an asshole on this film, but she went to do 6, 7, 8 series, whatever it was, of Desperate Housewives, and they're all still mates, you'd go, well, fair enough. She was pregnant, stressed, sick in the morning, fine. But I never hear anything good about her. Never. Catherine Zeta-Jones isn't quite the same thing. I don't hear she's a bad person or anything. I don't know. I just think she's an unlikable screen presence. Never like her characters or anything like that. He likes to bite, doesn't he?
Mm. He's quite biting.
There you go. He's biting the shoulders.
I think that's kind of like his kissing style.
Do you think after he makes love to the corpse, he eats it?
Oh. Let's not go there. Anyway, moving on.
Well, we'll be back to it in a while.
Delicious.
Delicious. Yeah, it's like Zombie Bond.
Now this,
there's an option.
I always found this interesting when he said, you know, he's 10 year perfect employment record, 10 years, dotted every I, crossed every T. What does that mean? Government agent. If something's too good. And I thought, yeah, wouldn't they know that? If you were building a cover for somebody, wouldn't they have had maybe they kept their, well, maybe they've been there 10 years, but they did have a warning 8 years ago for excessive sickness. Nothing criminal, nothing they were fired.
The thing is, though, like, I get what you mean, Dave, but I find that actually really easy to believe. I find it like that. This is what governments would be like that. They would be like, oh, no, absolutely, everything's fine, no issues. If in anything, it'll probably be like dead boring, so it just like passes everyone by, like, oh, it's just some.
Yeah, but you don't want anything that stands out. I mean, you're not going to put he was investigated for sexual harassment 4 years ago. What I'm saying is, if I think back over my work career, they've said 10 years.
That would be a ballsy thing to do.
So, for example, I was in a job for 12 years, right? And I had an informal warning. Well, it was an informal conversation, but it would have gone on my record because I had like a really bad cold. So bad I couldn't go to work, and about a month or two later I got another one, something like that, and then I'd got a stomach upset. It was just three things quite close together where I don't know if I was still on probation or what, but I was called in for a conversation. They were never going to fire me, they were never going to give me a formal warning, but if you hacked into my record it would be there. You need to put something like that there.
So members of the intelligence, you know,
have your agents get the shits at least once.
Just throws off the scent. So
Not well. A sense. The scent is not the word to use in the same sentence as shits. All these guys look tough, don't they? Fuck, I wouldn't want to fight any of them. Demand, isn't that morning or is that Sunday or something? What's the word demand in French?
Tomorrow?
I thought it was. It's
the French. It's
the French edition.
Languages.
Yeah, it's the French edition.
Nothing says I'm hard like a smart blazer.
That's why no one fights Alan Partridge.
Mind you, it's a step up from jumpsuits, though, isn't it?
Just a little bit, yeah.
Safari suits.
It's quite funny how like Bond breaks that really expensive satellite.
That looks like it cost about £4.50 to put together.
Yeah, but
they put a bit of budget on this film. You can't really call it cheap for the era, but that is not a £300 million piece of kit. I'm sorry.
And they got like the showers.
That's a model.
It was put together for a school project.
Separating them all.
My first satellite, built by Timmy, aged 12.
Oh yeah, literally.
It's polystyrene.
Lego satellite kits.
It looks terrible. It's the worst thing in the film that way. There's one other effect that looks really bad for the film book in the film book. Given it was 1997, we'll get there. I'm not sure if they could have done it any better. Well, I'll tell you now. It's when Stamper's foot is under the rocket and starts to burn.
Oh yeah, that's a bit of a dodgy.
That looks terrible, but I don't know if you can do better. Bear in mind, this is the same year as An American Werewolf in Paris.
I think it's one of those things. It's going to be
That
like very much in
amazing
this time, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sequel to
If you make a sequel to An American Werewolf in London, there's two things you've got to try and get right, and one is absolutely non-negotiable. One is the transformation sequence has to be brilliant and innovative. The second thing is you've got to balance comedy and horror, and it didn't do either. He gets into this safe now, and I love the fact it's full of like needles and porn. It's like, oh, he's evil. He looks, and then you think, looks, it's like Pottersville. He's having a great time. What's wrong with that? He hasn't opened it, and it's got the Angling Times in there.
Yeah. J.R. Hartley fly fishing.
At the Angling Times and some Murray mints.
Well, you got money, you got drugs.
Sex spiel. So that's sex talk.
Well, not only sex play, actually.
So he likes to
games.
All right.
Well, that's what my German A level tells me.
He wouldn't just have his holiday stamps or something like that, or.
No, something very, very wholesome. He doesn't lock the door behind him, does he? No. Like, he doesn't put anything back where it was. He just leaves everything open, all the drawers open, all the rest of it. It's clear that somebody's been rifling through.
Well, yeah, he's not.
This seems really cool.
Yeah, but he's not a very good spy. I mean, he's working his ass off now, and what's he trying to do? Right? He's trying to find the location of the Devonshire. What happens when he eventually gets there? She's already there. He's a crap agent. All this build up for something that she's figured out another way to do it. No problem.
Now, techno music, because it's cool and modern.
I know. I don't know whether I think that's hilarious or awful. I don't think it's David Arnold's first score. I think it's a best score. I think what I would say is it's
Casino Royale's his best score.
No, I mean even of the Brosnan era. But what I would say is it's a perfect first score, because if you called in and the previous guy had only done one, the previous guy before that, Michael Kamen, had only done one, you are kind of, even though you've got the job, you are auditioning. If you want to be a John Barry and do several, you're auditioning with your first score. So he's tried to modernise, but he's kept in modern elements. He's kept in classic elements. He's reminded them that he's happy to use the Bond theme, which is someone else's work. I think it's a decent first effort. And this is where he goes and fights a load of guys who really don't look like fighters. This guy looks like he should be selling, just retail or something. And this next guy,
the one guy he fights is like literally just like a manager from Tesco.
Yeah, the next one across, I was just thinking he should be
like a bank manager.
I was thinking because of the colour of the blazer, I was thinking hotel concierge for this guy.
Yeah.
He was like, it's okay, we'll have that sent up to your room.
See, he's half the size of...
I know, and he doesn't look very convincing when he's hit, Brosnan. I don't think he's that great physically. I liked his run. I think he moves quite well. And then he says this line to nobody in particular while there's blood poured everywhere. It's not a very good line. At least he brushed he brushed his hair before he... But who's it to?
It's a great line. It's to us. It's the audience. It's they'll print anything these days. And especially now, since, obviously we have Biden in the White House, but during the Trump era we had like fake news, and it's all come around again and all become relevant again, hasn't it?
They'll print anything these days.
They will literally print anything.
That's like Eastgate to get home. It's weak.
Well, yeah, he's that basic. Any of these like Sir Roger one-liners.
But you're just repeating something random people say in a similar context.
It's not just wink wink to the audience.
What line would you think would be better?
Don't fucking use a line. This is the desperation of...
You need a line, something like that. You need a line.
Bond needs lines, but he doesn't need lines everywhere.
I think that's why
for example, like where he kind of falls into the couch scene, I kind of feel like he does need a line. He needs a line to say.
No, it was camp enough as it was without him saying bottoms up or something.
You do need a cheesy line.
I think with that particular like death bit, that calls for a line.
What, when he fell onto a couch?
No, this one here.
Sort of cheesy line.
It's got to be better than something your fucking dad says when he's pissed off by a red top newspaper. They print anything these days. It's
what
shit.
should he said then? You've got to write the line. What should he say?
To be honest, I still stand with the thing is, what you're asking me is what the writers are asking each other. What line can we put there? And my answer's the same. I don't have one at the moment, so a line doesn't go there till I think of one. And let
us know.
If I think of one, great.
Let us know.
If I think of one, great. But the problem is, and it gets worse with Purvis and Wade, that they force a line. Global warming is a terrible thing. Is that really the best you can do? We've got to have a line. It's like, well, no, you didn't have one, did you? So don't bother.
No. And so listeners, if you're listening to this, and instead of saying they'll pretend to be these days, what should... I've no problem with the fact that Brosnan is at the lighter end, and at the lighter end they quip a bit more. I'm fine with him having how bad is his
quips.
parking? He parks that car in like diagonal.
Yeah, it's terrible.
He takes over 2 spaces. It's really awful. I mean, I'm not a motorist, and I probably couldn't park for pants.
To
But
be
I
honest,
think it's
that's
terrible
driving
parking.
directly into the space. You'd have been fine.
Your wheel is over the line. Like, somebody else couldn't park there.
Oh, he's going to be gutted.
Unless you've got a really small car.
He's going to be gutted when he gets a ticket.
How many parking tickets? How many cars did you write off?
Oh, and he's like, oh, she's still warm.
I'll just quickly have a nibble.
But I mean, you shouldn't really be delighted when the sacrificial lamb is dead. And I just remember going, oh, she's no loss. Because they hyped her a bit, and she was... And the thing is, she was a name, so you were going to hype her a bit, but she was in kind of a scene and a half.
Thing is, you weren't really that surprised because like all the promo showed it like in like one or two scenes. That was it.
Absolutely. The late Vincent Schiavelli.
He was fabulous, absolutely fabulous.
Died about 8 years after this. Died of lung cancer. I still think of him first, and it's a film I've seen once and did not like. But when I see him, no, that's not true. When I first see him, I think of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest because he's one of the. He's one of the
in that
inmates
as well,
in that.
wasn't he?
But he was also the guy, the ghost in Ghost that taught Patrick Swayze to touch.
Yeah.
He
was in that too.
And when I picture him, even when I think of that film first, the first one I said. But when I visualise him as he looked in Ghost. Slightly wackier hair and a bit slimmer than here.
Yeah. I think he was also in Princess Bride, I want to say. I kind of think he probably popped up in that as well.
Right. He'd have been in loads of things.
Loads of things. As well as things like you know him as soon as you see him.
And I love the fact, right? He's meant to be super competent, and all his speech is about how competent he is, but he's basically a comedy henchman, and it keeps Oh, it's a great line, and he's a good character. I like him. This is not a criticism, but in terms of like credibility, he's bested rather easily here. And then it cuts to outside, and they're all firing guns at bulletproof cars at angles where it would bounce off back into each other.
Yeah, you sort of have to...
Everybody sent to do this job is as thick as shit.
But Bond walks all over them, so it's alright.
But he only ever looks like Fleming's Bond to me twice. And the one was when he was sat in the chair having vodka before she came in, and the second one now is when he overpowers him and points the gun at his head and says, "Me too." That's Ian Fleming's James Bond.
Literally, when I saw this at PCC, this got the biggest laugh. Like, obviously, you could shoot you from Stuttgart and still the puppet effect got a big cheer. But this line about it called Out of Club, like, got the biggest laugh.
It is funny because I do remember reading that Brosnan was doing the drinking scene with the vodka. That he's like, the scene needs me to be smoking. Like, it just calls for me to have a cigarette.
Yeah, he did actually say that, didn't he? He needs to be doing something.
Yeah. I don't agree, but I see his point because he feels like the Fleming Bond there. But when he points the gun down at here, it's something you very rarely get with Roger Moore. He would, he got it once or twice, but there was a coldness to him then, and you didn't often get that, and I liked it. I think he had potential in the role. I think what does hurt him is the thing that no one ever mentions. His voice is thin and reedy.
You can't.
No, it's a pleasant voice, but it's not a killer.
And also
voice.
with Mr. Roger being as tall as he was as well, he's going to have that sort of
Roger was just so
really
much more. It just adds screen presence. It really does. But this is good.
I think Bros does have that presence as well. I mean, each actor kind of brings their own kind of brings their own presence to the role. I think they've all been good and bad in various aspects as well. But
let's make
love.
Sounds
a bit different.
He was kissing her a bit long there, wasn't he?
Like, compared to Roger, George sounds a little bit, he's got his accent sort of creeping in very occasionally, even though he tries to kind of...
I know, but most of them have fairly deep voices, and Pierce's is quite high.
Kind of, like,
I think if Pierce Brosnan was built like George Lazenby, I don't think it would matter, but because he's very slender, and his features are quite feminine, the high voice doesn't help with this idea of him as like a one-punch knockout artist and killer.
I don't think it. No, I think it looks great. He's up there with the best of them.
He looks sleek, and I would say a lot of people have laughed at it, but I genuinely like his run. I think he's got a very nice movement to him. His gun barrel's very good.
No, I don't care what you say.
I do wonder what how it would play if he was given like a little bit more like how he'd like to do it. Do you know what I mean? Like how because he talked about maybe sort of doing things a bit darker, didn't he?
He didn't like doing this greatest hit shit. I think we assume he wanted to do all the quips and bollocks, and he didn't. He just said, I was caught between Sean and Roger, and I didn't nail my interpretation. Now, that doesn't stop people liking him, but I'm saying he wasn't that fond of his own work in it. This is why I don't want Henry Cavill, because I've just got this strongest feeling he'd be Brosmark too, i.e. no take on the role. Just like Greatest Hits Bond.
Not a fan of,
I just think the Brosnan Bond is charming enough and likeable enough, and I can totally respect people who really, really like him. I don't hate him by any stretch of the imagination, but I just think he's got no take on the role. He's just a cipher. He looks good in the suit. He does the quips.
I think he looks good in the role. I just think he was just like ham-fisted by the movies and the production decisions.
I would love to see what he would have done.
Had he had a bit more competency with the scripts and the production, and maybe a chance to sort of put his own take on it.
I mean, this man did the Tailor of Panama. He can do morally grey. He can do quite cold. He can do quite psychopathic in ways. He can do all that. But they just wanted this Greatest Hits Bond who did the quips and his hair didn't move. And I think that's a real shame.
No, I think this is like my favourite scene in the whole film.
I know, you've always loved this scene, haven't you?
I love it.
It's when his tyres inflate now in the grin.
Had a good,
there you go.
Had a car.
Hey, he just kissed goodbye to his dead girlfriend 30 seconds ago, but he's having a laugh now.
But he's alright playing with this remote control car. It's just everything about it is typical, but it's ridiculous, it's really silly, it's something you probably couldn't do today.
Yeah, but you've always liked the ridiculousness in Bond.
It is. Well, that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's escapism, exotic locations.
No, that's not true. I do like it, because I like most of the Bond films, and it must be an element of this, otherwise I'd only like Bourne or something.
Well, exactly.
Clearly I like all this.
But to be fair, it is all about, the escapism as well, the exoticism of it.
And I certainly think by the end of Craig's run, I was feeling sorry for him.
Well, exactly.
It's like I didn't want that either.
Simon today is basically like too emotional. I think that's kind of what's missing. Is like Bond is essentially like a sort of fantasy.
Yeah, but Casino Royale has it right, because everyone says what a dour film. It made me laugh loads. Perfect.
Really, kind of Simon's argument was basically it hasn't kind of reached those dizzying heights ever since. It's kind of been like almost like a downward trajectory, because like Craig is almost too emotional, definitely.
Casino Royale is where I want it to be.
Sorry to talk all over you, Dave.
Yeah, I'm doing it
you do that to me often enough. But basically. His point is basically that it's kind of like it's a fantasy series, but Craig's like basically too emotional. It kind of really just really affects the series going forward. So I kind of wonder if they're going to have to go back to that more kind of adventure, and have not really out there quite ridiculous scenes like this, for example. It's something that they wouldn't be able to do it today. You certainly wouldn't see it in the Craig series at all.
It's not binary though. Everyone thinks you don't have to have Die Another Day or fucking the License to Kill.
No, you can have the in between, which is why things like Casino Royale were so successful, because it does kind of blend those sort of classic elements with something that's more grounded and more serious and going forward as well, and it kind of really starts off that arc for Craig of kind of certainly being more emotional, more kind of being more grounded and
that's
less
where I want Bond to sit. That's roughly. I don't want it sitting. I don't want it sitting. Look, you tits, and any funny kiss off line you can think of, even if it doesn't work. They let them happen a lot more organically in Casino Royale, and they worked. Because everyone says, it's because he wasn't quipping every 2 seconds. But I laughed about 5 or 6 times in that film. I've never laughed at 5 or 6 times at one of his films. So
they are they're quite dry.
He looks good. He looks good in the outfit.
Oh wow, his covers.
When Roger wore his outfit, his tie was slightly skew with. And it puts me off every time. His tie's done properly. I wish he'd borrowed a gun and shot Wade in the fucking head right now.
What's wrong with Wade?
Too loud, too brash, not funny.
He is a bit unnecessary in this film.
He should be locked away with fucking Boris.
Good old Boris.
He was just about okay. He was just about okay in GoldenEye. But here, look at it. Look how he's dressed. In a minute, you're going to get a joke about his second marriage.
Like this is the Felix Leiter of
Yeah, you do. I think I do quite like the character of Wade, but I kind of feel like GoldenEye was kind of like one and done.
Yeah, he's a clown
It's
hero.
not really necessary here, and yeah, they should have got a Felix, but they didn't.
Wasn't this guy in a Bourne film? Wasn't this guy in a Bourne film?
Yeah, he was in the Bourne film.
I did say to you, it's the one he was talking to on the boat with the encoder.
Yeah, I did tell that, and then I said it was Colin Simpson from Tomorrow Never Dies.
Cool.
Sorry, folks. It seems like I'm being quite combative tonight, but I'm really not.
No, it's all right.
I'm just trying to stick up for they'd be a miserable git.
The chap here is in Aliens as well. He's the commander in Aliens.
He is the commander. No, Becca, have either of us taken any offence at each other tonight at all?
No.
Don't worry about it then.
I'm just sticking up for this film. Yeah.
That's all right. And to be fair, I think extremes are what make opinions, and I'm not.
You are the balance, Dave.
I'm not dressing it. I'm not lying about my opinion, but I'm probably voicing it vociferously for the sake of the show and everything. I do not hate Pierce Brosnan's Bond, but I do think he's the weakest James Bond. But he's weak in a series I love most of. And I don't think he's often the problem. I think Chris is right. Most of it's the scripts. And pairing him with clowns like this guy. I mean, I was about to say, during the credits, Chris was talking, so I didn't... No, you, one of you were talking, and I didn't want to interrupt, because I do it all the time. And it had gone, but Lindy Hemmings' names came up. And I would have said at the time, I miss Lindy Hemmings being in this series, because she costumes them so well. Now I'm looking at Wade's hat and wondering about the wisdom of that statement.
Well, it's so mismatched, isn't it? I think it is meant to be loud. He is meant to be brash. So
he's basically really... Sheriff Steve Pepper, though, isn't he? That's what he is.
I don't like when you put an American character in and make it the loudest, fucking brashest stereotype of an American, because I think it's insulting to them, and it does not fit with the Bond series.
No, I mean in that scene, you've already got American character in terms of Colin Stinson. But I mean, he's brilliant. Obviously, he's
been magnificent in a lot of things. Yeah,
he's a great actor, but
I didn't mind Whittaker.
You don't really need him in this film. I don't mind him, but you didn't need him.
No, you don't. And the thing is, I think I've been a bit harsh on Whittaker before, in that the character's a little bit incoherent and a bit annoying, but actually the way he plays him is perfect. You know,
I sort of thought he's kind of more...
He's not a bad actor by any means.
I mean, you've got Netcross in terms of the henchman, but he's also kind of like an unusual henchman as well, in terms of having... I've forgotten his name. Koskov. He's very crap as the villain.
Do you know he's 86 now?
Oh my god. Yeah, time flies.
Frightening, isn't it?
And that scene previously where the diver goes down to the wreckage, that's also a CGI composite scene. But it's really cleverly done that you can't tell, and especially for 90s as well. I think that's...
90s CG was not good, was it? So that's impressive.
No, it's not until I watched the extras on the DVD when it came out years ago.
Yeah.
And my little mind was blown away by that fact. I was like, oh!
I will have seen all those extras, but I just don't remember them, Becca.
And it holds up.
It does. This was the first Bond film. I think I would say that, because the John Glenn era, and I'm quite a defender of John Glenn because I really like 3 of his films, but they were starting to look a little bit cheap and tired in places. And then GoldenEye came out, and as great as Derek Meddings was, and he was, you could tell they didn't have quite enough budget to make it as lavish as they would like. This is the first Bond film to me that felt properly expensive. Since like the 60s, when they were really spunking money on them for the era. It was the first modern Bond film where I thought, right, they're confident this series works now and they're going to put money to it.
But always in terms of like the effects and everything, obviously, because Meddings was a genius, I kind of won't hear anything else spoken.
No, I'm saying I can tell miniatures are miniatures, and you can't.
Well, yeah,
always...
that's it. I mean,
that's not him though. That's the compositing.
No, it should be the point where, like, when you can tell it's CGI, then, I mean, if it's a big effect, then that's fine. But if you can kind of tell, if you can see the join, then perhaps
I think it was
they haven't quite done their job.
No, I think it was the lighting and compositing. It wasn't Derek Meddings' work, because I've seen his miniature works elsewhere, and it's brilliant.
No. Like, for example, this is going to sound really stupid, but I was showing some photos recently from somebody who works in the industry, some behind the scene photos from Dine of the Day, and there's a scene where I think it's probably just before the awful CGI scene. Halle Berry does the backflip off the cliff.
Yeah, that's bad.
And there's a shot from I think it's probably just before they go to the island, and it's kind of a scene from sea level looking up to the sort of the castle that is the clinic, I guess, on the island.
Right, yeah.
I'm describing it really poorly.
No, I know what you mean.
I'll try to share the photos on our little chat group that we have. Obviously, this doesn't really apply to listeners so much.
Can I clarify with you then? Do you mean that he went to head off to the island where Halle Berry is already, and there is a shot that isn't in the film looking up at that building because it is raised up? Is that what you're saying? It is,
and it's a model shot, and I never knew that before.
Right.
And my mind was completely blown once again, because I assumed it was like a really bad matte painting, or it was just a shot from really low down of an actual location.
I thought it was a real location.
Yeah, my friend was like, oh no, this is obviously not Meddings because Meddings passed away.
I thought it was he had cancer.
I was like, it's a model shot. That's incredible.
The only thing that led me to deduce it might be a model because I thought it was real. But he blows out the wall, doesn't he, from inside?
Yeah, that's true.
And the wall looks made of bloody cardboard. So I thought I said either that's a set or the whole thing was a model and that's a set.
Guys, I've just watched this underwater scene, which is also very much of a Bond trope.
Yeah.
Thing. Investigating like a wreckage.
Yeah.
The scene where they actually escape and they have to go escape through this pipe, which would be quite claustrophobic while underwater without breathing equipment. I thought this scene is rather rushed because that could have been a really tense scene, really claustrophobic, really oh my god, I could barely watch this kind of thing.
So it's a bit of the opposite problem for Your Eyes Only, which I love, but they go underwater and they do 5 minutes work in about 20 minutes.
No, but it's not that. It's just this scene feels a bit that they could have.
Do you think they should have ramped up some tension?
Yeah, I think there's a missed opportunity there, but it just seemed to be let's get it moving on to the next bit. I just thought it was a bit of a missed opportunity for a really tense scene.
Yeah. No, I would absolutely agree with that, and I've never thought about it. Actually, but you're absolutely right. They put all the tension here, and there wasn't necessarily a need, particularly as they're going to have a confrontation with the villain later again. Admittedly, they have to meet him, but yeah, I will make one point though, and this is good-natured, but Becca's here as the staunch defender of this film. She ranked it about 19th.
I ranked it quite highly at the time.
No, you didn't.
It might change now.
You ranked it about 19th. You didn't really put it that high at all. But no, I would go along with that actually. I think if you're going to put people underwater with artificial breathing equipment, it actually some peril about whether that equipment lasts, works, stay with you, whether you're going to be caught if you're in some foreign location would make some sense, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because they have to oh shit, we can't fit through this pipe with the breathing apparatus, so we have to just swim through it to get straight to the top.
Yeah.
And it's quite a narrow pipe. You're thinking geez, are they actually going to be able to fit through it? Is it going to narrow or what? It was kind of a risk. They could drown. And that's when they get out, and then obviously you have to get to the surface as well. After that, so it's
they've got a very decent picture of Brosnan there for the headline as well.
Would he be good, doesn't he?
Yeah, I was about to question it, and I'd be wrong to question it. Bond's obituary being newspaper has been a thing in Fleming, so I can't question it.
I will say, Elliot Carver's wearing. He's quite wrapped up for somewhere, but it seems to be quite a hot climate.
Probably. Well, you know what it's like when you go to the cinema in the summer and you wear fuck all because it's not literally fuck all. I don't go nude, but
I was going to say, Dave,
you dress down a bit because it's hot, and then you get into the cinema and the aircon's so high you sit there with stiff nipples for 2 hours. Well, I think my own stiff nipples. I don't buy some at the foyer or something. It could be that. It's because it's in sort of a tropical, almost subtropical climate. It could be the air conditioning's on too high.
Yeah, I've got the controversial opinion that I actually quite like Elliot Carver.
Well, that's two of you, to be fair. I'm the only one who doesn't.
No, well, I mean,
it's quite hammy.
I remember it being like at the time, like kind of like, yeah, he's a crap villain. That this was like the reviews at the time. They were saying it like, oh, Jonathan Pryce, great actor, but just a poor villain.
Yeah, great actor, not great in this. I'll always have that opinion because I've seen the film dozens of times. But I
my
reckon
dad thought the same as well. He did all the villains.
Well,
villains
I'll say two things sort of in his defence. The first one would be he's not campy, so he's not like the Charles Grey Blofeld. And the second thing I'll say is what I said earlier on. All of the sort of larger than life villains are Marmite. So, you know, a lot, particularly if they've got the outlandish plan. I mean, there's people out there who think Drax is boring. You know, there's people out there who love Charles Grey because it's like really over the top and dramatic. A lot of people like Donald Pleasance. You know, I don't have an issue that people like him. I don't think he's objectively bad. I think he's subjectively bad in that he's making a load of choices I don't like. But I can't sit here and say it's a terrible performance. I can just say it's one I don't really like that much.
It's a great performance, but I kind of think he has the same problem as Bros. It's just obviously with the script and everything and the plot. You know, his kind of his machinations and his sort of kind of motivations for, you know, he basically wants broadcasting rights in China for the next 100 years. And he got a dagger to the bum there, didn't he? But I just kind of feel like his kind of his plot and his kind of villainous story is not really that memorable. It's a little bit kind of, I mean, it's very interesting now, especially in the era of sort of fake news. And now, obviously, his divisions would be kind of social media. It would be sort of TV, newspapers, radio.
It probably still would be, Facebook. But yes, there would be all of those things.
Yeah, so in terms of like him being sort of media mogul, like now it is still, even though it's 25 whatever years on, it's still very relevant today.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, it shows that sometimes the Bond writers can be ahead of the curve.
But
at the same time, I kind of feel like
it could be that, like, you know, some things never change. Like,
no,
you know,
exactly.
These things were like true then, and they're still true now. It's just,
yeah. I mean, if you think of the tabloid wars, I mean, we still have far too much intrusion into people's lives.
Yeah, we
but
do.
there was a circulation war in this country from the late 80s on.
When was phone hacking? Was that kind of like 90s, early 2000s?
Well, just the kind of brief history, if you like. If you look back to how public figures were treated maybe 30 to 35 years ago, the newspapers were fighting each other for circulation. So, for example, if you had an unsuccessful England football team manager like Graham Taylor was, they were ever more nasty and they were fighting each other to be as vitriolic as possible. And then once mobile phones came in, they learned how to hack them.
Yep.
And I'm not going to go into the stories tonight because there's a particularly sad one about a murdered girl where their hacking gave the family hope she was still alive, and I won't go into how. It's not that it's grim, it's that, you know, you don't really need the details. But the lack of ethics was phenomenal. But it was also in the 80s that, like, Reagan reversed the whole thing about neutrality in the press, and that paved the way for things like Fox News to come on. And all of these things are in whichever direction of sort of poisoned the public discourse. And the same thing is true now, but it's not true now, in that the paper circulation war is not quite the same. But of course you've got very toxic social media and bullying that way.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
And a very polarised, certainly visual and audio media, very, very polarised. So yeah, I think Chris is right. It just, the more things change, the more they stay the same. But I think you can date it from, I don't know, the 80s probably onwards. People older than me may say before that. But I just remember the intrusions into people's lives. I mean, I'll never forget. Now, you may not, this is not necessarily the worst example I could think of. Because why would I want to come out with the worst example? I'd probably upset Becca. But, you know, I don't want to say anything too nasty. But I can think of an example where we're looking at the Bond series here. Rory Kinnear, the current Tanner. Now, he was born, I think, in 1978. Well, his father died in 1989. Roy Kinnear, famous comedy actor. And he was on the set of The Four Musketeers or The Return of the Four Musketeers, or whatever it was called, in 1989, and he was thrown from a horse and killed. And the paparazzi sent cameras to sort of hide in bushes and film him at the funeral. So you had this 10-year-old boy stood there breaking his heart on the front page of newspapers. And that was Rory Kinnear, the current Tanner. I thought that was disgusting.
Yeah, it's not great, is it?
There was no concept of privacy. And there's been some legislation over the years about how you can use telephoto lenses and stuff, but people were being photographed in their own rooms. They'd forgotten to close a curtain. Some may have quote unquote forgotten, but in a lot of cases it was just people being photographed in private locations and stories made up about them. I mean, I remember for years all the sort of commentary about George Michael's sexuality. Now, in the end, he ended up outing himself in quite an inadvertently hilarious way. But like, in the years before that happened, we would understand now that that's nobody's business. But back then, it was like fair game.
That's the same thing like with various footballers or like sports figures coming out, isn't it? The same thing is intensely private, but now everything's in the public eye. It kind of just makes it kind of as if if you don't declare it, then.
But I don't think that's as bad as it used to be. I don't think that.
No, it's
I kind of think these kind of things generate the culture that's in it. So it kind of, I think as a baseline, people actually don't give a shit about that kind of stuff. It's like, well, it's whatever. But because it gets sensationalized,
exactly,
it and it's in all the press, or whatever it is, so just like it kind of manipulates the public into becoming like a cultural thing.
Yeah, I know.
But it's kind of like it's almost like the heat wave, like the hot weather that we've had recently. It's like has been really bad. No, they've been up into a frenzy.
Yeah, but you compare it to like a time where we had like similar or same temperatures. It's just like it's the weather.
Yeah.
But here they decorate it as big, like, red, like, the earth is burning kind of thing.
I mean, it is because records are being broken. I could defend the angle, but the tone of it, you would think we've never had heat waves before.
Yeah.
No,
but having said that, my mum was pregnant with me in that major heat wave, and the temperature peaked at 35.9 nationally.
Oh, bless her! Oh my gosh.
So, but there was a drought, so they had to go to standpipes in the street, and water was rationed. It was a horrible, horrible time. And what was worse about it is how long it lasted. So it was a very long heat wave. But yeah, we've never hit nearly 41 degrees. We've never done that. And
it was 42, wasn't it? That was like the highest it's ever been, certainly for this country. Since the 70s.
No, but it's like 5 degrees higher than it was in the 70s.
Yeah,
that's the point.
Ever, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it rained pretty much straight after. It was only like a couple of days, wasn't it?
No, it did only last a couple of days. But if you look at the highest, I mean, they've got accurate records on heat that runs back decades now, and like something like 8 of the hottest 10 ever are the last decade. So it's not that they don't have a point at all. But of course, I mean,
it's just the way they
I've had friends in other countries that find it hilarious. Even on a year where the angle isn't climate change, when they just so Britain set for a scorcher and it's front page news, and you send someone in Florida a screenshot of it, and they just go, "Fucking hell, really?"
No, we were in this sort of there's an Instagram book club that I'm a part of, reading Fleming, and now we're reading kind of Bond-inspired non-fiction books. And we talk about just how it's really hot in England at the moment, and sort of people they're all across the states really, sort of Washington, California, everywhere in between. And talking about obviously all the wildfires and the forest fires that they've had, especially in California the last couple of years.
We've had a lot of those there, though.
Yeah, especially here on Salisbury Plain as well. Over the last few weeks, sort of a couple of mornings ago, like the town where I live. It's just been like as if somebody has a bonfire next door, sort of thing, like really quite smoggy, quite smoky. And over the weekend, it's on BBC News today.
Why did they put a naked child in the shot here? I've never noticed that before.
Yeah, naked child. And
I never noticed it until you said it.
Well, I looked at my screen because I've got a computer on my lap and the thing on the TV, right? So my eyes panned up from the computer to the screen and straight onto a baby's arse.
You see a naked bum.
It was the first time I'd ever looked at that portion of the screen during this sequence. Sorry, yeah, it's been incredibly hot, and I don't think where I live's been the worst of it, actually.
It's been up and down, but like recently, was it sort of this weekend? You had like huge cloud cover, so it was like 20 degrees in the northern top half of the country, and then down here it's like.
I was out walking the dog in the rain today, 18 degrees, perfectly fine. But you know,
well, that's good.
Well, that was the thing. Yeah, well, I was able to take her out late in an evening most days. There was one day where it just didn't get cool enough. It was still 27, and I'm not taking her out in that.
Take her out at 10 o'clock at night.
I don't know. I remember reading don't take them out over 22 degrees, but I thought, how does that work in hot countries? Maybe that's based on the fact our dogs acclimatise as well.
I would have thought there would be some truth to that.
Well, generally, if it's too hot in the time, like if you're barefoot, it's obviously too hot.
No, I understand that, but I'm talking about service. No, that's the obvious one that you got to put your hand down.
Do it really early.
But what I mean
or late at night.
If the floor surface is comfortable, but the air temperature is still 24, 25, I've read that can still be bad for them. But I'm thinking there's countries where it's hardly ever below that. But I'm assuming in those countries the dogs acclimatise as well.
Yeah, they're a bit more acclimatised, and obviously you might get a high proportion of stray animals as well. So you don't. It's different. But whereas like over here, cause it's something that we rarely see. So. But I think it's just a general rule as pet owners. So advice will be different in obviously different parts of the country. So
I'm delighted Michelle Yeoh's having an Indian summer as well. She's aging terrifically well. She's kept herself in terrific shape. She's obviously got a recurring role in Star Trek where she plays quite a dark character.
I'm controversial. I wasn't too big on that film.
I didn't like it. It's not that controversial.
I really loved it, but I think I loved her in it.
And here's the reason why. It's aptly titled. It's just a bit too everything, everywhere, all at once at you. It's just like, this is a bit too much you're throwing at me.
Yeah, it's
and
just
really.
I thought it was absolutely all over the place and going, aren't we a bit wacky? But it didn't have the tone of a comedy, so it wasn't quite sure what it was trying to do. I love films that swing for the fences though, and I know the multiverse is now not a new thing because it's been in comics for years, and obviously Marvel and DC are doing their versions. To see it in a non-superhero context and to take it in weird and wacky places, I admired its balls. It's a film I was glad was made, and have every respect for it, and totally see why it's got like 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. I just didn't. It didn't vibe with me.
Yeah.
I do wonder if I'm heading into a depression because I'm reviewing a lot of things badly lately, and I don't know if that's films or me, because I gave Thor a kicking and I gave fucking Spider-Man a thick kicking, and mind you, I did review a film that's going out in the next couple of days called The Outfit with Mark Rylance that I was really kind to. So I am at least still enjoying some things, but I'm just wondering if I'm becoming a grumpy old man.
I would say, Dave, are you enjoying doing them though? That's the difference. Like I would watch a bad film and talk about how I dislike or pick it apart, whatever. But I enjoy doing. My time is still. I enjoy doing it. Do you know what I mean? I enjoy the process.
It depends what you mean by doing. If you mean watching, I'm enjoying that still. I mean, I'm not setting out to watch bad films, but I find a certain poetry in them. And sometimes it's not that it's bad, because Everything Everywhere All at Once is not by any measure a poor film. It's a very impressive film. It's just a film I didn't get on with. But the idea that I would sit and discuss that, I don't think I was paying enough attention either, because I watched it on a rip. So that film needs a rewatch from me, without any question, before I say anything on it definitively. But the idea that I would sit and discuss it with someone does interest me, so I'm enjoying that. I'm still enjoying podcasting. I must say I might be on the verge of a set the tape break, because I'm getting bored with writing now. And the thing is, the site is now, although there's plenty of people working for it in their 40s, I feel like I'm skewing towards the older end of it now. And not only am I skewing towards the older end of it, it's quite a right on site. I don't want to
interrupt you, Dave, but like, just how much does how much it cost and like to set this up for like? I mean, like,
I want to work from home. What do you need? A laptop? Well, no. What I need is
so this is like a permanent base, and if
probably, but you can get in from anywhere. It's really easy to get into.
I mean, this would be like what, for 2 or 3 people? Like
2 or 3?
I mean, come on, it's hardly just big base. It doesn't need all this kit, does it?
Is it Ghost Protocol where they sort of go rogue? They had less weapons on that fucking train or whatever it was.
At least that made sense because that was a train. That made a bit more sense.
No, but there were fewer weapons on that than there are here.
Yeah.
So 2 or 3 people, there was 4 or 5 of them, and they had less. No, but writing, I just find the sensibility of the site is starting to... I'm starting to feel like an odd one out. And I'm a very liberal guy. You know I am. I skew a little bit left in politics. We're not going to go into politics now, but I do. I'm very tolerant of everybody. You know what I mean? But if you follow that site in any way, it's just moving away from me. And I watched Miss Marvel recently, and I was going to review that. Now, if I'd written for almost any other site, I think I'd have finished the series and just written my shitty review of its bollocks, right?
Yeah.
But because of the site I'm working for and the mix of people on it, I just thought I have to be aware now that I'm a middle-aged white man. And I don't think it's aimed at me. So I handed it back and let someone else do it. Because I think what I'm trying to say is, I don't not fit the site. They've got all the same values as me, but there's a lot of different demographics on it that I am not representative of now. And I think I'm on the verge of becoming quite an outlier. And what that would leave me doing is only the things I'm specialist in. So I would still write about Bond if anything came up, and I would still write about, like, you know, Blu-ray releases, you know, the sort of Masters of Cinema type stuff, because I've developed a niche of like historic cinema and stuff. I think I would still do that, but when something comes out starring a 16-year-old Muslim girl, I don't know that I'm the most representative person on the site to write about that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but no. I mean, I disagree with the logic, but I understand that's a feeling.
It's me thinking of them more than thinking of myself.
Yeah,
because I am perfectly qualified to write a balanced review that would reflect something that isn't possibly aimed at me, but these demographics might like it. What made it worse, though, was I was struggling even to see that. I hated the show. I thought it was terrible. Yeah. And the thing is, because I haven't liked much of Phase 4 full stop, I've thought it's been largely terrible. I think Marvel have jumped the shark something terribly, right? And the problem is now, it's me whinging. Well, I gave Doctor Strange a pretty good review, but I think half of that was I was overcompensating because it was half decent. I thought I'd better say something nice about one of these. So I'm starting to second guess myself now. But also, it's me whinging about Marvel in a sort of middle-aged white guy way every 2 months now, and I don't think that's a good look when it coincides with a series that has become notably more diverse. It looks like I'm whining about that, and I'm actually not. I'm perfectly happy.
No. The thing is that's a bit of a red herring, really. Like,
no, but I think it could look bad.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? I think.
Especially in today's climate,
I just think hand it to a younger woman, or like people of different sexual identities on the site even, and if they don't like it, then at least that might carry a little bit more weight. Yeah. Because I'm now of that demographic where people would go, well, of course he don't like it. Ain't fucking aimed at him, is it?
Which to me is just like a daft. I mean, it depends really. It depends on what your criticisms are. I would look.
No, but it's the site I'm writing for.
Yeah.
Look at the mix of people on the site. Becca knows what I'm talking about. They're wonderful people. I love them. I've really enjoyed working for the site. But I'm starting to feel like I'm an outlier. And there's a couple like me. Like there's Lee who writes for the site, who's about my age. He might be a year older, but he writes about like cheesy old British TV and Doctor Who and stuff, and it's like, well, it's easier to do that when it's a niche interest. Just like I could write about Bond for them forever, but I just think when I'm writing about some Marvel film, which probably isn't aimed at my demographic, features a load of strong females, makes one of the main characters bisexual and another gay, and I just think, like, is it the right look for the site to have it in my hands critiquing it? Even though I have not one single issue with any of those things.
Yeah.
Although sometimes I feel like they're trying too hard.
I mean, it depends. Like a day, you just write what you want to think about. What I could say, it could just be as well that you know, because it's just like not really interesting you.
Yeah.
Like talking about like the phase 4 or
I am getting
whatever.
I'll do it on a podcast.
So it's like I'd rather sort of write about something like that.
Yeah, just give me some old westerns from the 50s and I'll give it a look, because I'm learning more about cinema as I'm doing it.
Or just whatever piques your interest. So it's like maybe approach it if you were like if you do your own blog.
I think what I'm saying is
what I want to write about.
Because I'm not liking a lot of stuff recently, I've either got to take a break because something's going on with my mental health. I don't think it's that. I think it's more likely I've just seen a load of stuff that isn't really aimed at me anymore. Or I need to find my lane, and I'm currently in the wrong lane. From phases 1 to 3 of Marvel, it was all suiting me perfectly. Ethnicity, sexuality, and sexual identities in these things are completely coincidental. It's the fact that they finish with Avengers Endgame and they're now on a massive come down that's filled with excessive amounts of content that isn't very good and isn't very well connected. But I just think it's the wrong look for a site that presents itself a certain way. It does a lot of content during Pride Week and things like that, and then you've got a middle-aged white man whining about Marvel, and I just think, like, let someone else praise it or whine about it. It's not a good look for them is what I mean. I know my own head and heart, Yeah. But anyway, we cut Becca right out of that. Becca, shoot 'em up, Bond coming.
What do you do, Basil?
Yes, this is where the John Woo kind of elements start creeping in.
No, I kind of see your argument a little bit, David.
Do you see what I'm saying and why it's not a reflection on me? You know the site, you've written for it.
Well, to be honest, I did sort of used to write for Set the Tape a little bit, but now I can just about make a bit of free time for this, but otherwise it is a little bit at a premium at the moment. I sort of have to pick and choose really. I would like to do a blog of my own, but then if I do that, I might as well write for an outlet or something. For example, I don't know, and then you get into down the rabbit hole of like, do you monetize it? Do you not? How do you do that? Blah 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 blah. Anyway,
and here's John Price's famous moment in the film.
Yes, this is it.
When he says pathetic, I always think that's like a comment on what he's just done.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that's. I kind of agree with you guys a little bit. I do love John Price as the villain. I think he's great. He does ham it up. I rate him highly as an actor. I've luckily seen him on the stage at the Shakespeare play in Shylock. It's fantastic. And what was he recently that I saw him in?
The Two Popes.
It is brilliant.
Did you see him in The Two Popes with Pope Benedict?
It's fantastic in that as well.
Yeah, but he channeled Pope Francis. It was just an incredible visual.
It was an amazing impression, wasn't it? Oh my gosh. But he's very good in what he does. But I think here he does ham it up. But I kind of feel like Carver is a bit of a kind of forgettable villain. Motives are a little bit questionable. All he wants is broadcasting rights in China. He goes to quite extreme lengths to get it.
Do you know one of the things? It occurred to me while watching this.
Come a long way.
It occurred to me while watching this. I think one of the reasons why it doesn't take it, and I don't think anyone's actually ever said this before, but I think it's like his wardrobe is off, like his hairstyle, I think if he was presented a bit differently, I think that says a lot. That does add to a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's a bit bland, isn't he? He sort of wears the
yeah,
same outfit
exactly.
Well, the haircut, I think he could be presenting BBC Breakfast or something.
Yeah.
It reminds me, who is that? The football coach.
Do you know what I mean?
In the 90s,
they could have gone full on bold. They could have gone full on bold. You know what I mean?
90s? Do you mean?
It's early 2000s.
Do you mean Sven?
Yeah, it just reminded me a little bit of Sven. randomly in there. I don't know why, but I think as a Bond, he's more like in the Drax Blofeld kind of style, a Bond villain wearing the sort of the Neri jacket style.
For anyone listening, not from this country,
I don't know about football.
Look up Sven-Göran Eriksson. Look at a picture of him, and just know there's hope for any of you, because that man got industrial amounts of women.
Well, he was married to like the previous Italian years.
That's reality. We're talking about like movie.
But yeah, he was in international football, so of course that's going to be like babe magnet. But yeah, no, he's a bit of. I would agree with you, Chris. He's a bit of a bland Bond villain. But yeah, John Price is fabulous. I think everyone's kind of really on fire in this film. Michelle Yeoh is, even though she has to be rescued, even though she has to be saved, and the romantic aspect is shoehorned in a little bit. Yeah. She kicks ass, and she's still like. One of the strong.
I love Michelle Yeoh, and I love her in
the series.
She doesn't work.
I think had we not had her or figures like her as well, we wouldn't have had like characters like Nomi or Paloma in No Time to Die, for example. And I think that's kind of one of the few films where Bond sadly doesn't get the girl in the end. Which is
I can't touch her. I'm diseased.
We can't do it.
There you go. I always want someone.
Doesn't rescue the girl. Like,
I would love. Sorry,
he's not the one to save Madeline or Matilda. No, he does it. He doesn't save.
Can I just say one thing, Becca, before it disappears? When he just pointed the gun up and fired,
magic button, Beijing disappears.
I've always wanted someone to like Photoshop it or like whatever, so it's a can of Raid he sprays up.
Yeah, listeners, do it now.
Because that's how the gunplay plays on this boat. He's just randomly going, there's a bee's nest there, and there's some wasps over there. It looks really shit.
Listeners, if you're listening, if you can work your magic, please Photoshop.
Photoshop a can of Raid into, like, Brosnan gunplay.
Let us know. Because he's like, there's a wasp there, there's a bee over there.
I cut you off before when you were talking about, like, blogging. I don't know if you...
She was talking about me writing for Set the Tape. And
I kind of see what you mean. It was like, I was sort of doing the same myself. It's like, well, if it's a film, because I was working for Filmoria years ago, like over a decade now. Yeah. I'm sorry to say I don't even follow the site anymore since it got bought by another really bland looking blog.
It did,
which is terrible. But in its heyday, it was fab, and we all enjoyed it. But yeah.
They repurposed all the articles without crediting people.
It was an adaptation of a Shakespeare play, set in like Afghanistan or something like that. And so I think it was like gender flipped. It was a different culture. But I kind of felt a little bit like I'm a Shakespeare fan, English literature student. Can appreciate all these things, but I'm not that demographic. I'm a sort of white woman's Instagram. And it's like, do I feel qualified to write about this?
I don't think it's being qualified in my case.
It's not just it's not just there are other white male critics, Waterbury type critics who who are still critiquing these sort of films, and you have to take a lot of these things into account. You can hold your hand up and say that I'm not the demographic, but I'm going to treat this as fairly and squarely as I can. And so that you do have certain biases. We claim not to have any prejudice, but not you personally, but people in general. But you do.
No, I try and paint my biases over what I write, so people know.
Well, as a review, I do.
Like full disclosure.
Set the Tape has a really good team. There's a range of ages, a range of backgrounds, a whole range of demographics, precisely so they can cover this material. You can have somebody who does write about classic TV, Doctor Who, things like that. But then also, when they do come to write about either new series, they're shooting out as a Doctor. I'm sure they're still going to review it, even though it's somebody completely different to themselves. Just because I'm a woman doesn't mean I'm unique.
No, they've never stopped me reviewing anything.
Jodie Whittaker.
I'm just realising I'm putting in the several Marvel review in a row that's not very good and handing one back because I just don't feel the right person to do it. I would have done it. The fact it was like a 16-year-old female Muslim lead wasn't the issue. But as I went through it,
a bit to do with it as well, because you are generally the Marvel go-to guy.
I am. I was the cinema go-to guy before COVID. That's what I started writing for the site, and because I was going to the cinema so much, I was doing all the big releases. So it used to be everyone else was doing TV and the Road to type articles, and it would tee me up. It would tee up my review coming on Monday, sort of thing.
It would. Is that perhaps the reason why? Because you are getting a bit fatigued now?
I think it's partly that I'm doing more of a range of stuff to try to keep myself busy. Yeah, I think it's more the fact that because I was the Marvel go-to,
and you're also doing that. You did the road to Bond as well.
It's two things. It's two more things, and I've got to be careful how I say them because I'm not going to expose any prejudice because I don't have any. But I'm going to say that because I am one of my go-tos is Marvel, and I'm sorry, Marvel has been shit for over a year now, with a couple of exceptions. That then leaves me writing reviews for a site on things full of demographics. For a site, I am now becoming increasingly less representative of the sensibility of. Because, for example, it was Pride Week recently. Well, don't read into this I have any issues with that, or my site putting a load of stuff in about Pride. I'm proud of them, no pun intended, for doing it. But I'm hardly going to fucking contribute, am I? I've got nothing to say about Pride. You'll get like queer themed weeks and stuff like that. No issue with any of that. But like, I've got nothing to say about many of the things the site has an interest in now. Let's put it that way. And so when I'm coming out with my middle-aged white man, isn't this fucking 16-year-old Muslim girl show shite? I don't think it's a good look for the site, which is why I handed it back. And the person who reviewed it liked it.
I mean, I've not seen it, but it does look piss poor.
It is. It's crap. But part of the problem is...
I can't really say more than that, because I haven't still watched it, so I can't...
Yeah, but the biggest problem is there's too much of it. There's just too much Marvel at the moment. If everyone's super, no one is.
It's getting all content in it, so it's getting like, just get it out.
If everyone's super, no one is. Right? There's just too much of it by an absolute fucking mile. It has no... and I just think it's all trying too hard. I love that it's full of like representation and stuff, but there are places where I definitely think it's trying too hard.
I like you should spend 2 bullets to to put some steam on 2 bad guys, but you could have just shot them both.
Yeah, but
sorry to cut you.
Well, it might be that she saw their outfits and thought they were a bit creased, and she's heard that like if you hang your shirts in the bathroom when you're having a shower, it takes all the creases out. She thought a bit of steam will sort that. The boats never looked very good either. Not inside, I mean outside. From outside it looks a very obvious model. The set's fine.
And counting. Need a guy at a desk sort of counting down as a microphone. 60 minutes in counting.
Yeah, so I think I'll just end up writing about fucking Masters of Cinema and stuff like that. When I was going to the cinema really, really regularly, I'm going semi-regularly again now. But I seem to be seeing so much that I had a good variety of different content to give them. But because Marvel is ruling the fucking world at the moment, I seem to be doing nothing. I seem to be doing a mixture of 1920s films and fucking Marvel.
So this is why I think it's Marvel fatigue more than anything. I think it's just why because you are the go-to guy, and because it is. I was sort of having this. Having this sort of discussion about this sort of Bond as well. If they kind of put films out in terms of, how often Marvel did, I think we would probably have like Bond fatigue or something now. But I wonder if it's just because,
and I think the content's
maybe
really
take a step back from Marvel and say, I'd like to do something else, or I'd like to solely focus on classic movies, or, you could probably be the guy who reaches out to Studio Canal and says, every release gift to me, please.
To be honest, this happens with Masters of Cinema. The whoever does the publicity for them sends me the discs without us requesting them now.
Yeah, well, I used to get that. I can't remember. It was mainly because I used to do for more. I used to do like a lot of the anime. What was their name?
Studio Ghibli.
No, Fetch PR. That was it.
Oh yeah.
yeah, they for very often a lot of it was for fetch, and yeah, every time it would sort of come out, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's mine. So I didn't, it landed on my doormat. I said, I didn't request this, and they said, oh no, it's due next week, it's fine.
Well, I think it's because they Wendy said it's because they like your stuff. I said no, it ain't. It's because I'm kind to their stuff generally. They've had rave reviews from me
for them as well, and it just shows that they do appreciate it as well.
They do a great job.
You're kind of on the mailing list, aren't you? So
yeah, they and Arrow do the best job with older films and stuff. But,
yeah, Arrow, great. Arrow, anything like that.
I think it is Marvel fatigue, and the white guy guilt in me wishes that like phases 1 to 3 had been super diverse and the standard we got, and now it was shit with like middle-aged white men, and I'd feel less guilty about it.
Well,
because it just seems to coincide with an era where they've suddenly gone racially, age-wise, and sexually diverse. Put people in of different sexualities for the first time. I'm suddenly finding it shit, and I just think that's such an unfortunate coincidence.
Yeah.
So yes, I've got white guilt,
careful
folks.
To tie yourself with that brush there, Dave. But yeah, it's just one of those things, isn't it? I think you can go back to it's anything. Culture moves on. They've been going for like 10 years. Obviously not Marvel, but like the films have been going since like what
2008.
For many years now. And obviously, even in these films, which are very forward thinking, you can sort of go back and say, oh, actually, that's not that diverse. The cast is mainly made up of white people. But I think that's why things like Black Panther and everything were so much of a landmark.
Which I was kind to.
Exactly, but it's one of those films where, and especially something like Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is not a superhero film, but it kind of is, but it kind of isn't. It's a kind of first, sort of like non-white cast or very minimal white cast. Jamie Lee is perhaps one of the only white faces in it.
Yeah.
And it's why Black Panther was such a landmark, because it's mainly all sort of African American cast, or very very diverse cast for sure. You got something like Nope upcoming as well, which again is hugely diverse. Many people with different backgrounds, sexualities, all kinds going on.
Yeah.
But you can look back at any sort of film series, especially Marvel as well, and
I think you may have hit on it. I think you've hit on it. I just think the phase is terrible. And I feel slightly guilty because it's full of a load of diversity that it looks like I'm second guessing myself. Is that part of the problem? And I don't think it is. I think it's just crap. But
aren't they sort of like talking about doing like a second Eternals film?
Yeah, I mean, why? Okay. The first one was dreadful.
Yeah, I suppose maybe it'd be just past the point. If it makes so much at the box office, then that automatically means there's going to be a sequel, or it sets off a trigger, doesn't it? Probably. I mean, it's one of those films that maybe it did quite a lot, but received a critical drubbing. That's just one of those things, isn't it? It's like it's quality over.
But it's too much of it. I mean, there have been something like 6 television series, maybe 7. I can't remember if Miss Marvel's included in the count now, and I can't be bothered to recount. And there's been 4 or 5 films. It's since February of last year. So in 18 months, you have had something like 11 or 12 new Marvel products, vastly more hours than we ever would have got when it was 2 or 3 films a year. And it's been, the quality control has gone to absolute shit. And I've liked parts of it. I didn't mind the Doctor Strange film. In fact, I quite liked it. I enjoyed Hawkeye well enough. I enjoyed like Falcon and Winter Soldier well enough. I thought Wanda was reasonably experimental. But like most of it has been mediocre to terrible. And the Eternals, I just thought that's what you get. That's where I think the only way diversity's gone wrong, because I think they were desperate for more females, more people of colour, and somebody with some art house credentials who wasn't too expensive. So they hired Chloe Zhao. Well, watch the work first. The principle is laudable, that if you go on hiring what you've always hired, all your directors are going to look like David Fincher, you know what I mean, or something look like them. I get that, but look at the work and see if they're a fit. And Chloe Zhao is the worst possible fit for Marvel. Who would be a worse fit for Marvel? Fucking Derek Jarman? I don't know. I can barely think. Mike Lee, maybe. I can't think of many directors who would be a worse fit.
Mikey would be very unexpected.
What would be the other one? Oh, what's the guy who did Dogville and that?
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? But there aren't many who would be worse. She was totally the wrong fit. And
Lars von Trier.
That's the only way in which I think they're worrying so much about their targets. They're not looking at the who. You can absolutely mandate quotas if you want.
Think because of
you got boxing exercise as well.
That they're so eager to.
They wore a lot of criticism earlier for it always being Jon Favreau, Kenneth Branagh, the Russos, etc. And I'm totally happy to accept all of those criticisms because you don't adjust it until you actually challenge it and put a greater variety of different types in there. But that still doesn't overcome the fact that if you put a pretentious art film director in there, they'll produce the superhero equivalent of a pretentious art film.
Yeah.
And that was the end of Tomorrow Never Dies.
Yeah. Featuring extra white guilt.
Featuring extra white man. Well, that wasn't.
I've really fucking opened myself up.
Robinson,
I've really opened myself up here, haven't I, with all this shit?
Oh, Michelle Yeoh.
Yeah, Michelle Yeoh, definitely. And then the guy who helps Bond jump out of the plane.
Yes.
And maybe some of the people at the cocktail party. But
what are you talking about? People of colour? Well, you've got Colin Salmon.
Yeah, Colin Salmon, Michelle Yeoh.
Oh, I didn't hear that bit. You'll never hear any complaints about greater diversity from me. What will always piss me off is if you pick the wrong person in pursuit of that. Now, experiments can always go wrong, but Chloe Zhao is 100% the wrong person to do a Marvel film.
It's that old kind of affirmative action again, isn't it? Or whatever.
But I'm not even arguing against affirmative action. It's
I'm all for diversity.
Make it if you're going to do it, make it the right affirmative action.
And it's probably not called that these days. That's probably quite outdated.
At least make sure they've got appropriate CVs. That's basically what you're saying, isn't it?
Yeah, at least they want to do the job.
Yeah, exactly.
But there we are. So so how many more Bond films have we got to?
We have got left to do. Actually, Becca's got the list, but I know it's Thunderball.
I have my list. Hold on, I do have the list somewhere. Please bear with me.
I think it's only 3. I think there's only 3 left.
Let me just scroll all the way down to the bottom.
So I think off the top of my head, I think it must be Thunderball then. Pussy and
Thunderball.
No Time to Die,
which we've done.
Yeah,
Thunderball, Octopussy, and No Time to Die, and maybe the 1960s Casino Royale.
Yeah, and a possible redo of Moonraker, because that's where Chris's comedy Gold Foghorn Leghorn casting session disappeared.
I think you guys cut out just briefly, not long ago, but it was only for like a minute. Because I don't know if you guys got the.
No, don't worry, it'll be fine. I think we've got an editable thing here.
Yeah, but there you are.
Yeah, so as usual, we've gone wildly off topic, but we talked about the first half of the film.
Yeah. So let's talk about the film sequentially.
Well, I'm going to go with one last hot take. We are talking over KD Lang's Surrender here, which is common opinion should have been the song at the start of the film.
Yeah, no, it's like main sort of theme.
It should not. Tomorrow Never Dies.
I have that opinion that it's
Sheryl Crow was the wrong singer, but it was the right song.
It's the problem is though I get why people say that, but because it's the riff that's used commonly throughout the film, but then that's all the song is. It's that riff.
Yeah, it wouldn't fit with a title sequence, I'm absolutely convinced. Tomorrow Never Dies was the right type of song, I just think Sheryl Crow was the wrong type of singer. But there you go. Lowry Digital Images.
Could have been Pulp.
Tomorrow Never Lies was their version, before the misprint.
It was.
That told you Bond films and titles are totally interchangeable at the moment. Tomorrow Never, I don't know, again? Yeah, alright.
Tomorrow Never, again, yeah.
They should have got Radiohead to do one. Bloody hell.
Do you know what? If you'd said that to me in the 90s, I'd have gone, yeah, that would be really like classy and cool and maybe a little experimental. Their version of Spectre, I think if anyone who prefers it just prefers the idea of Radiohead doing a song, because it wasn't actually any better than what we got.
I think anyone who enjoys Radiohead now just enjoys the idea of Radiohead. I generally...
They were special. They were special once upon a time.
Contest that, like, I mean, I know there's people out there and like, oh, I love Radiohead, I love what they do now, and blah, blah, blah. I think they're just kidding themselves. I think they're kidding themselves.
Kidding themselves. They released Kid A and Amnesiac within a year of each other in the 2000s, and that's when they started going down this slightly tuneless experimental route. When they released those, I must admit, with some reservations, I liked them and I found them interesting, and I was happy that they experimented. But then they came back after that and did one more album which sounded a bit more like their older stuff, and then they disappeared back into this noodly fucking navel gazing, and none of it's for me. I can't say none of it's any good. I would say none of it's for me.
Yeah, they seem to be kind of like embarrassed about like what they used to do as well. That's the issue.
Not playing Creep live is taking the piss, isn't it?
It's just like, yeah, and that I think that's the thing that rubs me the wrong way. It's just like you think you're better than like what the audience actually likes. You know, it's like, oh, you know, I'm not going to do this popular, you know, stuff with melodies and hooks. The things that people like and listen to music for.
Like songs.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, we're just going to give you this artistic bullshit, like that's very sort of self-important and like, just the stuff that only hipsters like. But but if they think they're really honest with themselves, they actually don't. They just like the idea of listening to it. It's the image. Oh, I listen to Radiohead. I'm so edgy. I'm so cool. It's like. We're just a fad now because it's like, who listens to Radiohead? It's like fucking people in the 40s.
Yeah, I was going to say, what you're saying is, I think they're still cool. I'm not sure.
Do you know what I mean? It's like... Yeah.
I told you, it was a bit like when my dad in 1990, because like Phil Collins was winning Best Male at the Brits, he thought he was like the coolest thing in the world to kids, and I'm like, no. No.
Oh, nothing wrong with Phil Collins.
Didn't say there was. Against all odds, he had a great career.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's enough quippy puns for tonight. That was our Bond commentary, sort of, with extra white guilt. And we move on to something that's more in my wheelhouse. Old and all white folks.
What with dwarfs and...
No, that's not what we're doing next.
Oh, yes, of course, yeah. Oh, we're Italians, isn't it?
Well, we'll let Becca see us out in a minute. Social media, you can find me at the Pasty Kid 1976.
Yeah, you can find all the old episodes at soundtracks.co.uk, and it's all on Podbean, so you can find all the old episodes there.
Wherever you like to listen to us, please don't forget to rate, review, like and share us on your podcatcher of choice, whichever platform you're listening to us on. Why not, next time you're on social media, stick a link on your Facebook or your Twitter and say, hey, I'm really enjoying listening to Do You Expect Us to Talk? Please share it with your friends.
Do start with the word hey, I like that.
Hey!
But say it with lots of E's in it, so it's like Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah, I was about to say it.
What you want to say is, hey, I'm really enjoying Do You Expect Us to Talk. Can't wait for Do You Expect Us to Talk the next generation.
King!
Yeah.
They aren't the kings of podcast. I prefer now playing.
On Twitter, at Expect Us to Talk. On YouTube, Do You Expect Us to Talk? Obviously, we're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, as Chris said, on Podbean, Podbay, indeed, whichever platform you find us on. And if you want to, you can always email us, expectustalk@gmail.com.
I have a question before we go. Has anyone actually seen The Grey Man yet?
No, I'm literally going to watch it tomorrow night. If we hadn't been available tonight, I was going to watch it now.
Oh, okay.
Not that there's any hurry because it's on Netflix and it landed yesterday, so it's on Netflix and it's not going anywhere.
It's not very good.
I've heard quite the opposite, but I haven't seen any actual critical takes, and I haven't seen like the Rotten Tomato score or anything. I've seen film tomorrow.
No, yeah, I'm not sure what the Rotten Tom score is, but
I'll
I think
have a look, I'll tell you now.
Yeah, I think
so it's like a film by algorithm, and I was like, oh.
I think the response has been mixed. I think I understand it. I think it's very much.
It doesn't sound anything super original, does it?
No.
No, it doesn't. But it does look great though.
Yeah, I think it's cast, production are all great.
Oh, it has had bad reviews. It's on 49%, though the audience score is 90.
But I mean, I would say it's fine. The problem is it's basically a big budget Netflix film. Ultimately.
Did you ever see the Chris Hemsworth one, Extraction?
Yeah.
No.
Right. Do you remember me describing that as I could see the algorithm working?
The same thing.
Did you understand what I mean by that statement?
Yeah.
So is the Grey Man the same thing? To a varying quality, maybe.
I'd say the thing is that you can see the quality. It's just a bit like I think it's like it's probably similar to like this film we just watched, Tomorrow Never Die. It's all just very like the action's very good, but it doesn't land, and it's constantly moving forward that you never really get a chance to like. I'm
scrolling down now, and I'm seeing.
But it's perfectly watchable. It's perfectly fine. Like past 2 hours of your time. It's not.
Well,
like,
I'm seeing
awful.
a mixture here of rotten and fresh, and I'm not really reading any of them. I've seen a few names I know, like Casey.
And the cast are good.
It all says I'm seeing, even on the positive ones, I'm seeing a few forgettables and blands and stuff like that. Okay. Disposable. Yeah, alright. Okay, yeah, I'm watching that tomorrow, so I might report back at some point.
As always, bad reviews. Yeah, okay, I'm watching that.
So, we've done Where We Are. We're moving on to a series featuring the triumphant return of Mr. Charlie Brigden. Charlie is, we were talking about Set the Tape earlier. Charlie writes for them now, and he picks up a lot of the historic releases, and I've noticed he has a penchant for picking up westerns as well, and he's fairly knowledgeable on them. Probably the route in being that a lot of the things he likes in modern pop culture have a bit of western about them, but also a lot of the scores he would enjoy, and it's one of those things he can explain his attachment to, but for that reason, he's going to be joining us for the next 2 seasons. The next season being Leone Westerns, although next week we might be telling you about some more additions to that. Which means, Becca.
Yes, do expect to talk. We'll be finally doing all the Westerns, starting with A Fistful of Dollars.